with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, markets fall, prices set to rise as Trump launches tariffs against China, Mexico, and Canada. And at this point, China and Canada have already retaliated with their own tariffs. Meanwhile, Trump suspends aid to Ukraine because Zelensky didn't wear a suit. Tonight, Trump to address the nation in a joint session. Some Democrats will be protesting. Some Democrats will boycott. Meanwhile, Democrats block Republican attempts to ban trans athletes from school sports. Trump's State Department quashes a USAID report showing that hundreds of thousands of children will die over the next decade without support from USAID. The Supreme Court weakens the Clean Water Act to allow more raw sewage in your drinking drain. I should say more raw sewage discharge.
Oh, okay.
Not directly into your drinking water, but you'll get there.
I mean, making America healthy again by drinking a bunch of everybody's poop.
Let raw sewage discharge be free. Stop trying to curtail everything.
Your woke discharge trolls.
Trump Musk's federal spending freeze is starting to break agencies. Doge to close 2 key NOAA facilities, which provide the nation's weather forecasting. So, for farmers, construction workers, air transportation, ground transportation, the number of industries that rely on this, and also just, people. It'll be fine. It'll be privatized. Social Security, meanwhile, the assault ramps up as Trump looking to fire thousands of Social Security Administration workers. U.S. Post Office is up next. Meanwhile, the Department of Education has frozen affordable repayment plans, exploding loan payments, sizes, I should say. Trump orders huge swaths of U.S. forests cut and handed over to loggers. And good news, Democrats appear right now primed to take the government shutdown seriously and offer no support to Republicans. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is a very busy
Newsday Tuesday.
Very busy Newsday Tuesday. I have a 3-inch stack of stories that we will not even get to in the headlines that I think arguably could be worthy of headlines. There's a lot of court cases that are ongoing. trying to pick out the sort of the most relevant ones, and it's just an overwhelming amount of news. One or two things. One good news is the other day we told you the story of maybe this was last week, and I think I first heard it by Greg Sargent in the New Republic, if I remember correctly. One of the USAID's programs provides essentially like, it's almost like it's not pre-digested food, but it's a peanut butter based paste, protein paste that comes in tubes for children who are literally so malnourished that they cannot actually digest food because their systems have more or less shut down. I think like literally the technical term was like wasting away. And there were 2 factories in the country that had USAID contracts to provide this stuff. And hundreds of thousands of these, I don't remember what they call them, not ready-made meals, but some other technical term for it, were sitting in these factories unable to move anywhere because they couldn't reach anybody at USAID. The contract seems to have been canceled, et cetera, et cetera. The story, which we, I think, first talked about maybe a week or so ago, again, I think it was from Greg Sargent over at the New Republic, migrated over to CNN. CNN covered the story over the weekend. Supposedly, the Fuhrer, Musk, saw it, and in his benevolence grace, decided to allow the contract to be fulfilled.
Oh,
and
our merciful king.
And yes, all glory. And so these kids are going to get the food. Now, they're very lucky that Greg Sargent and the New Republic happened to write about this, and then somebody at CNN happened to read Greg Sargent and cover this. Because if it didn't happen, you would have 5,000, 10,000, 1,000, 50,000 kids just not have any food and die.
Well, they're ready to use therapeutic food sat in a warehouse.
Right. And this is the type of sort of fiat that government is being run by now. It's not even fiat, it's just the complete luck. I just one of the lucky ones or the connected ones. That's it. And I also want to make a point, and we'll cover this later in the program, but to that woman from The Biggest Loser who I was on Piers Morgan with the other day, who said this feeding the starving kids is, and I quote, a red herring. Go F yourself. Yes. Go take your maha and shove it up your ass. You worried about people's health with the processed food? And you say that starving kids are a red herring? Go F yourself. I doubt she'll hear this or see this, but I felt like I had to say that.
We should clip it.
We should clip it. Let's clip it, and we'll play it at the end of the. We'll play it in the fun half.
Just tag her.
Honestly. Oh, you mean clip what I just said?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
We should prop clip it.
We're prop clipping right now.
Meanwhile, what we were going to start with. Oh, yes. Overnight, Trump decided to suspend aid to Ukraine. Look, this is all been just for show. The idea that Trump was going to suspend aid was decided upon a while ago, or at least that this stunt. I don't know if Donald Trump was an asset of Putin, or if it was just because of his relationship with his father that he desperately, looks up to Putin, or who knows what it is. But you're a fool if you think this is a thing of like Donald Trump not wanting to waste American dollars.
Oh, well, 3 days ago, he approved billions of dollars more to be sent to Israel, including unleashing the 2,000-pound bombs, which kill everybody within the radius of 2 football fields. The one thing Biden did to reign in Israel was stop those shipments. Trump's doing it again. Turns out you can stop weapons to a country that's committing a genocide, but for a country that's defending themselves against an invasion, no. We side with the strong men here.
The idea that Trump is doing this because he doesn't like war, days after he's expanded the U.S. military's ability to kill civilians, days after he's provided billions of dollars to Israel to kill more Palestinians, is simply patently absurd. I don't know why Donald Trump is doing what he's doing, but he's not doing any of these things based upon, some love of peace, some love of civilian life, some desire to save money for Americans. Is it out of some semblance of vengeance because he never got the goods that he wanted to get to implicate Joe Biden in 2020? Or is it because, there's a P tape? Or is it because he just has some weird attraction to men he perceives as strong, and you've seen too many pictures of Putin riding a horse without a shirt? I don't know. I have no idea. But to imply that this is his agenda is about peace is ludicrous. Now, will it lead to peace? It might. It also very well might lead to Russia invading other countries because it's worked. And,
or just continuing the Ukraine invasion.
Right. Continuing to Ukraine. I mean, there were 2 countries that joined NATO that never had intentions of joining NATO, but did so because of fears of Russian aggression. Take it up with them. In the years prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we had folks on here talking about, is NATO really worthwhile, or is it anachronistic in this age? And then Putin comes in and basically says, well, let me weigh into that argument. Here is J.D. Vance playing up, the fake controversy he drummed up as an excuse to cut off aid to Ukraine. And let's also be clear, the rare earth minerals deal, all the experts who have weighed in on this are basically like,
yeah,
these aren't really, we call them rare earth minerals, but they're not really rare anymore. And they're not used for batteries in the way that's not where battery technology is heading. So this was all just sort of like part of a way of Trump selling some notion to, for some reason, to some constituency out here. And here's J.D. Vance sort of being sent out. I guess who's the point person on Zelensky was rude to us.
Back to the Oval Office Friday.
Yep.
From your perspective.
Yeah, great TV. As the president said. Yeah, well, it's funny. So we have a 45-minute press conference, and the president normally does this. I've seen this now 3 or 4 times with foreign leaders where he likes to bring the media in, likes to have a conversation, but answer questions with the press. As you know, he's very open with reporters. And what I noticed is that for the first 25, 30 or so minutes, he tried to sort of bend over backwards to be gracious and kind to Zelensky, even when Zelensky was kind of needling him, even when Zelensky was saying things that I thought were untrue. The president just tried to be diplomatic, right? I think that's his natural instinct in that situation. And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it. And then something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
then I went back at him, and what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit, because I'm like, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's
pause it for a second. Like, listen to the way this guy is talking about this exchange.
Yep.
There's not one substantive thing. It is all like literally. I've heard rappers go back and forth about their beefs with more specificity and substance.
Well, he opens with saying it's good TV, and then he just said again something about television. I mean, he knows
stuff
his
like
audience.
on the Bachelorette, where people go back and forth and retell an exchange that go awry with more depth.
I know. Well,
this is just absurd.
We need like the black and white cutbacks like they do on Real Housewives. But like he starts with the TV point, which he knows his audience. Donald Trump wanted to make a TV moment. We said when we reacted to it live on Friday that he was acting like he was doing a firing on The Apprentice, and that's the mode that he slipped into. And it's just incredible when he says Trump's open with reporters. The reporter that asked that question about Zelensky's suit was Marjorie Taylor Greene's new boyfriend from some bizarre right-wing outlet, because in part the administration has kicked out all of the legacy media like the Associated Press because they don't say Gulf of America. I mean, there's just so many lies here. And we talk about how like the Republicans are the look what you made me do folks. This is worse than that. It's like the look what you made me do would be like, oh, you offended me, Zelensky, so we're going to punch you in the face and cut off your aid. But he didn't even do anything offensive. They started the aggression. It was like he punched Zelensky in the face, then said, okay, look what you made me do. You made me punch you in the face, so I'm going to punch you in the face again and take the aid away. And he's revealing way too much by referring to TV all the time, because that's what he was brought in there to do, was to do a publicity stunt as a pretext to say he was so disrespectful when he wasn't, to take the aid away.
Continue.
Having this meeting, obviously there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private. And then the president, as we kept on going back and forth, I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see. And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect. There was a certain sense of entitlement. And most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff, but the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelensky and, of course, President Putin, too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table, and that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelensky says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown, is I think Zelensky wasn't yet there, and I think, frankly, now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to.
This peace process started off with not even inviting Ukraine to the table.
They were meeting in Saudi Arabia with Russia. A day before Trump appeared at this Miami summit hosted by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, where he then called Zelensky a dictator. I mean, come on.
He's so diplomatic.
You know what? He's such a dumb idiot too, Trump is, and he's so far gone, his brain is just fried. Like, if he really had this grand idea that he wants the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever, he's talking about, you have no cards, Zelensky. Trump, you showed all your cards about how for some reason you're fixated on Russia, and we still don't know the extent of that connection or whatever. But you were pretending like you were going to come in and solve this on day one. But he couldn't help himself by showing his disdain for Ukraine and his favoritism for Russia right away. So no one buys that you're actually looking for peace in this instance. It was so obvious. And it's causing, I don't know, major controversy about it, I guess. Although who knows if this is more than just I don't know, people like us who care about this, the kind of thing. But I don't know.
Well, all those EU leaders shouldn't have made fun of me the first time around. Now they're going to pay.
They should start boosting the speech of their Nazis, and then maybe we'll have something to talk about.
We need a more militarized Germany. How could that go wrong?
Also, come on. again, not to moralize, but like, why is he laughing like this? We're talking about a war that has killed many, many people.
Well, that's what they're concerned about. They're concerned about all the deaths.
Oh, I can tell by the laughter.
That's why they want peace.
And the TV mentions.
In a moment, we'll be talking about other news that we have. The president has initiated tariffs against the Canada and Mexico. Good. Stop letting those guys, these Canadians, go up there booing our national anthem.
Yeah.
So we're going to show them we're going to drive our economy into a recession. Now we'll see who's who. How about that? Canada. We'll get to that in a moment. First, a couple words from our sponsors. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Delete Me knows your privacy is worth protecting. Sign up, provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. I've been using this service for years before they became a sponsor. I think they just started sponsoring a couple of months ago, but I've been using this for years. It wasn't initially, although I think it is a big benefit from like phishing scams and stuff like that, because now what they're doing is they're getting a little bit of information from whatever data breach it is, and then they are going to data brokers, which are readily accessible to people for a couple of bucks or whatever it is. Go and get more information. Then they send you an email, or they send it to your. They can do it on your social media. And they have information about you that you assume, like, this isn't a random phishing thing. They know my name. They know my address. They know my number, whatever it is. And that's the way that the phishing works. For me, it's also been about OPSEC, operational security, because let's face it, there's, particularly these days, but even really since the beginning of the time I started working in this business, there's people who want to intimidate you by sending you letters. If you got kids, you want to protect them. But Delete Me does a great job of scrubbing me, and they would you, from all these data broker sites. Want to thank our sponsor of today's episode, Delete Me. Like I say, easy to find personal information about people, and Delete Me does a great job. And they do this on a rolling basis because the broker sites always refill with the information. And they send you a report each month, what they've taken down. You can always adjust it to, it's not just, get rid of Sammy Seder because I signed up for something. I didn't, but you can do that too. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting majority to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text majority to 64,000. That's majority to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, this episode is brought to you by Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks. Zippix brings you a totally satisfying, convenient, and great-tasting way to curb your nicotine cravings so that you can get your nicotine fix anytime, anywhere, without having to rely on, are you ready? Smoking and vaping. Zippix toothpicks give you an easier, better, and more discreet way to get your fix. And frankly, it's better for you than putting smoke or vape in your lungs. They're available in 6 great long-lasting flavors. They have 2 options, 2 milligrams and 3 milligrams of nicotine, so you can titrate your way down. And then, if you want to get away from the nicotine totally, Zippix also offers caffeine and B12 infused toothpicks. which give you a quick energy boost. So there's a whole like sort of step process you can take. You can take Zippix toothpicks on flights and sporting events, restaurants, literally anywhere that smoking and vaping are banned. They're one of the most cost-effective nicotine products on the market. Proudly made in the USA, Zippix have already helped hundreds of thousands of customers get their nicotine fix without needing to inhale smoke or vape oils. So what are you waiting for? Give your lungs a break. Try Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks. Ditch the cigarettes, ditch the vape. Get some nicotine-infused toothpicks at zippixtoothpicks.com today. 10% off your first order by using the code MajorityReport at checkout. Your lungs are going to be glad you did. And also the people have to smell you. Must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Okay, couple of words about tonight. Tonight is Donald Trump is going to be giving, it's not a State of the Union address because I guess the tradition is that within 2 weeks or a month of taking office, you can't give a State of the Union, but it is a joint session. So it's not technically called the State of the Union. He's going to go up there. He's going to talk about all the horrible things that Joe Biden did, and then he's going to talk about all the great things that they've done and how we're going to make America great again. And we are not going to cover it live because, frankly, we want to pace ourselves. And we'll probably cover the State of the Union next year and the year after and the year after.
And I read something. The State of the Unions actually haven't moved the needle in any of his State of the Unions. Like, people like Trump as much as they do after his State of the Union, or dislike him as much as they did before.
But he's also like one of the bigger indicators for who voted for him is lower information voters or people who consume very little political news. So the people that are already watching the State of the Union already hate him, right, and the people that are voting for him aren't watching the State of the Union.
There is value in it, but I think we will cover it tomorrow. There's value in a couple of things in terms of at least analyzing it. One is to get a sense of where he claims he's going to go, and maybe we can divine from there where he is going. Whether they feel like they're feeling political heat in any way will be reflected in this speech. We will get a sense of what Democrats think they need to do, which is really important, particularly when we are now 10 days away from a potential government shutdown. I mean, this is going to be a big deal. I'm looking at reporting now. I don't know if it's true in Politico. Maybe we'll go through it in a second. That suggests the Democrats are not going to vote for a continuing resolution unless, not a clean one, unless, and certainly not one that edifies the cuts that Musk has made, unless they get some promise in the form, I think, of legislation or reiteration that what Elon Musk is doing is not authorized. It is illegal. It's beyond undocumented. It runs contrary to the law. And so hopefully we will see maybe some indication of that tonight, that the Democrats understand. And this story, I'll read this political story maybe a little bit later because, people were critical of, although not many, I have to say, were critical, like, why are you getting on the Democrats? What can they do? And there is stuff they can do. They can't win, but they can lose much better to set up another win.
Well, by doing politics. I mean, this is different than the other times in the sense that the base is very unhappy, too, with the way the Democratic leadership is responding. It's borne out in polling. I've never seen polling like this. I wonder if Hakeem Jeffries can survive. I mean, we'll see. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part.
It's going to be interesting to see some of the other Democrats if they start showing that upset with Hakeem Jeffries, whereas you said 8 years ago, Pelosi was much more popular.
Yeah.
So all that is encouraging, I guess, in some respects. as you know, Israel, I think we mentioned this yesterday, headlined, Israel has decided to prevent any humanitarian aid to reach Palestinians in Gaza now.
Which is an admission that they could do it. I just want to point that out. We heard for so many months that Hamas is blocking it and stealing all of the aid, and we're trying to get all of these trucks in, but the terrorists are thwarting us. And now they're just essentially saying, now we're cutting it all off. And there was a top Likud official that was saying, oh, actually bomb the aid that's already in there. And they've cut off water salination for all of central Gaza. And the photos of devastation, like they were doing Ramadan celebrations amidst this rubble, there's nothing left, barely any homes left. And now they're trying to, I think, execute their final solution in Gaza by starving them to death.
Ostensibly it is about the hostages, but Israel has been breaking the ceasefire deal over and over again. 3 days ago, was it? 4 days ago, they announced that they would not be leaving the Philadelphia corridor, which, of course, also contrary to the ceasefire deal. And the U.S. government, once again, consistently saying, oh, you're violating a ceasefire deal? Well, perhaps you would like $4 billion more in aid. Here you go. That's what we're seeing. Here is Bibi Netanyahu on Sunday thanking Trump for his unwavering support of Israel.
I want to thank President Trump for his unwavering support for Israel. During my recent visit to Washington, I said that Donald Trump is the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House.
Now,
and President
pause it for a second. This is Sunday. 2 days after J.D. Vance is in the White House with Donald Trump telling Zelensky that he hasn't properly thanked the president.
Yep. Now,
incidentally, Zelensky at the beginning of that press conference did in fact thank the American public. The Ukrainians are running like training schools for the U.S. and EU on what they've learned in the 3-year fight that they've had with Russia, which is is obviously pulling people away from the front and the fight. But that type of payback is invaluable, whereas Israel's probably just spying on our top government officials based upon past experience.
Yeah.
But here is Netanyahu coming out, making sure to do a very splashy thank you to Donald Trump. It's almost as if there is a nexus between Russia and Israel and the U.S. in this instance.
Yep.
Is the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And President Trump shows that friendship each and every day. He has shown it through his visionary plan for Gaza. This is a plan which Israel fully supports. He's shown it by sending us all the munitions that were being held up. This way, he's giving Israel the tools we need to finish the job against Iran's terror axis.
Just, you don't even need to take it down, but just want to clarify, that's 2,000-pound bombs that the one thing Biden did was block, even though he let Israel commit genocide the entire time. It can take out 2 football fields of people.
And he has shown it by fully backing Israel and putting the pressure to release the hostages where it truly belongs, on Hamas. Israel has accepted President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff's plan to extend the temporary ceasefire by 50 days. During that time, we can discuss the conditions for a permanent ceasefire that will end the war in Gaza. In Witkoff's plan, half of the hostages would be released right away, and the remaining half would be released if we reach an agreement on a permanent ceasefire. Again, Israel has accepted this plan. I accepted this plan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But so far,
he's lying here again. So Jeremy Scahill tweeted this. He has connections with people in high levels of Hamas. that they didn't even see Witkoff's plan or were not briefed about it at all, according to Scahill, prior to Netanyahu coming out publicly and saying that they had rejected Witkoff's plan. And the ceasefire deal that initially they'd agreed to had said that if negotiations are still ongoing about the second phase of the ceasefire deal and the hostage release, that you can't violate the ceasefire. You still have to be engaging in these negotiations. So he's claiming that Hamas is violating it, even though they weren't briefed on this new Witkoff proposal.
Israel has accepted this plan. I accepted this plan. But so far, Hamas has rejected it.
Nope.
Hamas had also put forward positions for a permanent ceasefire that are totally unacceptable. Israel has decided to stop letting goods and supplies into Gaza, something we've done for the past 42 days. We've done that because Hamas steals the supplies and prevents the people of Gaza from getting them. It uses these supplies to finance its terror machine, which is aimed directly at Israel and our civilians. And this we cannot accept.
Pause it.
We will.
So we are to believe that they are turning around. They're completely surrounded. The only way to get supplies in to Gaza is through Israel, right? Because they're at the Philadelphia corridor and they're obviously in their northern border. So the argument is that somehow Hamas is selling all of these supplies in, I would imagine, like great prices to all the people in Gaza who have been completely wiped out. It's not like, there's ATMs on every corner in Gaza. Prior to everything being leveled, 50% of the people were unemployed. People are starving there, yet they have enough money to buy all these supplies from Hamas so that Hamas can use this money to weapons. Like, what is Hamas? Where is Hamas selling these supplies?
Yeah.
It's just absurd. It's just impossible. They don't have some type of they have this underground railroad. They're selling these supplies in the Sinai desert.
It's insane. I mean, he's under ICC. There's a warrant out for him. And one of the crimes that is alleged is starvation as a part of the genocide that he's committing. And then in this video, he's laughably trying to claim that he cares about people starving. So what's the alternative? If you're so concerned that Hamas is taking all the aid and it's not going to people, how are you going to get aid to them? Because he doesn't answer that second part of the question, because the whole thing is just a pretext for starvation, to kill them all.
Hamas presumably is selling all of the food aid to like a McDonald's or some type of big restaurant chain. And that's how they're getting all this money.
Which is aimed directly at Israel and our civilians. And this we cannot accept. We will take further steps if Hamas continues to hold our hostages. And throughout this, Israel knows that America and President Trump have our back. Thank you again, President Trump. Thank you for all you're doing to return our hostages, bolster our security, and provide a future of prosperity and peace for all the peoples of the Middle East.
Oh, my God. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is out there. This is the free speech warrior. He announced on Truth Social, and again, I don't think he has the legal authority to do this, but I think people are, at least the mainstream media, completely missing the point. But he writes, all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. What are illegal protests? We don't know. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Oh, that is so revealing, because remember we covered that story about how Nassau County, Long Island banned masks. That's not about that's not about COVID. I mean, some parts of the country it is. It's really about this. It's about protests against Israel.
But people don't seem to understand, you watch mainstream reporters going like, how is this more efficient? But this is really going to hurt these agencies that they supposedly want to help. Like, do people not understand what the agenda is here? The agenda this is the feature. This is not the bug. All they care about is creating this type of confusion, making it relentlessly hard for federal workers to do their jobs. This is just, a sop to, I guess, Miriam Adelson.
And the Zionist lobby.
And the Zionist lobby, AIPAC.
Do we have the RFK thing too?
Oh yes, here is Maha.
There's a measles outbreak throughout the country. I saw some reports of there's an increase in dysentery in the Pacific Northwest. But this is how we have to really worry about making America healthy again.
They fired, incidentally, all at the USDA accidentally. All the people who were in charge of keeping the bird flu under control in our chicken populations, basically, our poultry populations. Here is Secretary Kennedy talking about the need for vaccination and public health. Talking about college students.
Anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual
Let me help.
Yes.
Anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual and moral malady that sickens societies and kills people with lethalities comparable to history's most deadly plagues. In recent years, the censorship and false narratives of the woke cancel culture. The woke cancel culture. I can't even believe that he wrote that. So embarrassing. The false narratives of the woke cancel culture have transformed our great universities into greenhouses for this deadly and virulent pestilence. Making America healthy means building communities of trust and mutual respect based upon speech, freedom, and open debate, and not wokeness. I added the not wokeness.
Was this the same day Trump said that there are illegal protests as he's talking about speech freedom and open debate?
I mean, it's just
the same thing. It's the same project.
It's the exact same project. It's so grotesque.
Michael Brooks said, one of the reasons he was over and rolled his eyes at standpoint epistemology and sort of identity politics, the cancel culture, was because of the pro-Israel arguments he heard growing up that were very cynically deployed in this exact same sort of way. And this has always been the case on free speech, that the number one, what is one country you have to pledge allegiance to sign contracts in this country because of anti-BDS laws? It's Israel. And this has been the case for so long. And I think it's a real shame that this is the way we've ended up. And as these universities get attacked, and like Peter Thiel's on Dave Rubin saying, maybe we don't need them anymore, the way that they are failing this test of standing up for their students' right to protest, the things that they would put on their websites to draw people like me to the universities in the first place, to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to places like NYU, take that out on financing. And now they're folding over in a way that was so predictable because AIPAC-style donors also have a huge say at these institutions, and they're completely incapable of meeting this moment, a complete capitulation to just an assault on free speech. And I don't, deserve, and what people deserve, there's going to be a lot of harm. But the administrators at these institutions, as Peter Thiel burns through them, they have it coming with this sort of thing.
Yep.
I mean, you're exactly right. And it's just crazy to see Kennedy, Health and Human Services, the guy is they did send out some directive about, okay, please get vaccinated for measles, but he's focused on spiritual health in that response here. That's essentially what he's saying. I don't give a crap about this. What is he, the top priest of the Health and Human Services Secretary?
Guru.
The spiritual
guru.
Moral malady.
And then spiritual guidance from that guy.
Likening the protest movement against Israel's genocide to a plague. I mean, come on. This is just crazy stuff. but I guess this is what he's there for.
We'll talk about his sort of like tepid endorsement of getting a measles vaccine and how it was considered such a relentless betrayal of his base in a minute. But let's go over some of this tariff stuff. Trump announced 25% tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and 10% on China. It was in addition to the existing 10% on Chinese goods. As of now, it is unclear if he's just going to end up issuing waiver after waiver. But here's Fox News yesterday. Watch as the Dow goes down. Now, this is funny to watch, unless, of course, your pension is invested in this and you're about to retire. Also, it's a good teachable moment for people who are like, we need to put our money in the stock market instead of Social Security.
Yeah.
All our money. Why isn't all our Social Security money in the stock market? Now, I imagine it's going to bounce back up at one point, but we'll see. But here is Trump announcing the tariffs yesterday. Stock market is plummeting. And the real problem, of course, is going to be that there is going to be real inflation for people, and these tariffs are going to function like a regressive tax.
Yep.
Because they're going to raise the price of goods. This is just like a VAT, just like using a sales tax as a mechanism in which to get revenue. Because rich guy, poor guy, both got to buy a car. If the car is now $1,200 more expensive on average,
which is what the reporting says it may do,
as a minimum, it is more of a percentage of that poor guy's net worth than that rich guy's net worth.
That's why flat taxes in general are so insane, but it's why the sales tax in and of itself is regressive, because it affects poorer people more. This is just a compounding sales tax, essentially.
Exactly. And here is Donald Trump announcing it, and watch the Dow.
I'm a huge fan of Ronald Reagan, but he was bad on trade, very bad on trade. He allowed a lot of people, a lot of businesses to be taken. So I say that with due respect, because he was so great on other things, but he was bad on trade. We are setting records right now, records like nobody has ever seen before. When you have companies like this coming in, and almost 40% of their company in one signature is going to be devoted to what he does, which is one of the most important businesses in the world. That's an unbelievable thing. When Apple now is going to start building all of their plants here.
Doubtful.
Goes down to 177.
I mean, people put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music to it. It would be funny if it didn't harm us all.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that, and this is maybe a little bit conspiratorial, but it does look like they're driving us toward a recession. Just headlong.
The Atlanta Fed, like you said yesterday, is predicting one. We heard from Kowalski in Nebraska, our farmer friend, saying that wheat futures are price of wheat has dropped significantly, which is strange when you're not at harvest, because that means that the futures are down. Cost of oil is down, which means that people our economy is starting to slow. We'll see. But this is the thing, is that, people have said, like, what are they thinking about? Like, why would they do this? I just don't think that the normal rules that we apply to politics are operating here. Because I don't think Elon Musk cares. I think he is completely shielded from any type of public backlash. I'm not sure that Trump cares. I think they're confident that they will be able to win the election one way or another 4 years from now. And certainly, like, the lawmakers are just sitting there like deer in the headlight because there is an unlimited amount of money that can be deployed against them in the primary and for them in the general.
And tariffs can, when like they're applied to specific industries and being targeted, it's there. They can incentivize onshore manufacturing of certain goods. Say if you want to be competitive with a Chinese company that doesn't have strict labor laws, like the idea that Apple's going to manufacture iPhones here, please. Like that you can compete with them by raising their prices with tariffs so that our products here are sold more. But to do it across the board like this just functions as a regressive tax on the poorest people so that the billionaires can keep getting richer, because a lot of them, they're just doing crypto speculation. Well, that's outside of all of this.
That's the thing, is people like Warren Buffett and private equity, and you see a lot of this crypto speculation because there's no good investments. Well, they're sitting on billions of dollars of cash, and will go on a shopping spree the second that all of this stuff crashes. And so they feel fine about it. They don't care about it because they are looking forward to the clearance sale.
Yeah. Can you pull up this budget
Kowalski's clarified its corn futures are down.
So, oh, yeah.
Even though we're 6 months away from harvest.
This is just such a helpful thing that I think the Yale Budget Lab did, that just even these top key takeaway points at the start here, that they've done a model of the planned 25% Canada and Mexico tariffs. Just scroll down a little bit.
And again, like Emma says, if you have tariffs that are targeted in certain industries that you want to build and give an advantage to within this country, it makes sense. But when you blanket a country for no reason, with no ask, like what's the ask of Canada?
And with no, now, you're not trying to develop any of your own industry.
On the day that he imposes the 25% tariff on Canada, because lumber is going to skyrocket, he also, Trump, just a day or two ago, basically said that, well, you can log the hell out of our old growth forests in this country. Huge swaths of U.S. forests are ordered to be cut down by Trump. I don't know his ability to do so. I imagine there's going to be lawsuits because endangered species law shield about 400 species in national forests, including bears, owls, salmon. The future of some of America's most prized forests now appear uncertain. Under Biden, the U.S. committed to protecting last fragments of old growth forest. Obviously, these help for global warming. They soak up carbon dioxide. But Trump has all changed that. His... do you know who Biden, and we'll get back to the tariffs in just a second, sorry.
No,
Biden's leader of the Forest Service was? It was a guy named Randy Moore. He was the first black person to lead the Forest Service, but he was a soil scientist.
Sounds qualified.
Sounds qualified, doesn't he? The new guy who is leading the Forest Service was the vice president of the Idaho Forest Group. Oh, well, I mean, so the guy knows forests, which incidentally is a company that chops down wood and sells wood.
Yep.
So literally putting the industry that you have the Forest Service to protect our forests from in charge of management of the national forests and millions of acres of land.
But that's connected to this because of how much lumber we import from Canada in particular.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that we're, and so we're going to destroy our forests to justify Donald Trump's 25% tariff on Canada.
Yeah. And just because I think this can be obscure for people, just because Trump is bringing back Gilded Age style politics that haven't been relevant in quite a while. So they've modeled this. The Budget Lab modeled the total effects of the plan, 25% Canada and Mexico tariffs, 10% Chinese tariffs. Trump already imposed 10%, so this is additional. The policy is the equivalent of a 7 percentage point hike in the U.S. effective tariff rate, raising it to the highest since 1943. The price level rises by 1 to 1.2%, the equivalent of an average per household consumer loss of $1,600 to $2,000 in 2024 money. This also would hurt GDP growth. It appears in the long run, the U.S. economy is persistently smaller. I care less about that. And it points out tariffs are regressive taxes. Losses for households at the bottom of the income distribution would range between $900 and $1,100. But that is obviously, as we say, proportionally harder. And electronics and clothing and motor vehicles and food are going to be affected. But figure 3 is, I think, really helpful here too in envisioning that. This is the distribution of the effect of the 20% tariffs on China and 25% Mexico and Canada tariffs, and you can see there.
Different shades are for the limited retaliation, and then the other is the full retaliation. So, and it appears that at least China and Mexico, or I should say Canada, are gearing up for a full retaliation. But we shall see.
Either way, this is how the Democrats need to frame this is that this is a tax on the poor and the middle class. Straight up. Instead of increasing taxes on the wealthy, which they are now cutting, according to the Republican negotiations in the House and the Senate, they're going to try really hard to do that. They are putting that on the backs of people going to the grocery store, people buying a car, people buying a cell phone. That is where they're trying to raise this revenue from. And it's not even the most effective way to do it, but it's also even more taxing on lower income people than the tax cuts would be alone for the wealthy that they're already discussing in the House and Senate. It's a compounding effect. This is just a way to continue to drive income and wealth inequality. Yeah. And I really do think you're onto something about how this won't affect like the people that matter, these billionaires in the Trump administration, because they're all in this speculation bubble outside of the practical realities of goods and services and needing to buy things to feed your family or to put a roof over your head. If this really does go into effect, and he's not just using this for some weird negotiating purpose, it will be devastating. And the Dow is not overreacting.
Which, by the way, he says we're doing this for a couple reasons, the fentanyl stuff and immigration issues, but then also it's also about our trade imbalance, which kind of shows that maybe the other things are just mentioned just to have...
Of course. The amount of fentanyl that comes across our Canadian border is like infinitesimally small.
And Post-Coconut Clarity writes in, but I care less about the GDP thing. Yeah, I do know what GDP is. My point is that GDP isn't always the best indicator of how lower and middle income people are experiencing the economy. That's why it was just a little less interesting to me. But sorry, keep going.
I mean, I don't... Outside of like using it as a way in which he can give gifts to his friends in terms of waivers, it's unclear to me what they think is going to happen from this.
I'm curious how Elon's businesses are implicated, because if he crashes Detroit and Elon gets scot-free somehow, it'd be really a bad outcome.
Tesla's having some problems apparently with its stock because people aren't buying Teslas anymore because they don't want to be associated with the guy who gives all of his heart to everybody.
Well, they're not buying Teslas. They shouldn't buy anything due to tariffs.
I am seeing, and look, you know, there's a lot of people who bought Teslas because they were like, this is electric vehicle. That's good. I'm going to help the environment. And so they did it with the best of intentions, which is why I don't believe that you should deface these vehicles. Although I have seen flyers going around with pictures of Elon Musk giving his Nazi salute, and people putting them in the windshield, wipers, like putting it on the car just to remind people. So I think it's okay to make people feel bad about their car. Maybe they'll sell it, or flood the market with used Teslas.
Well, you can't resell Cybertrucks, that you have to pay back the price difference to Elon for something like that. But one Cybertruck I did see, which I think Cybertruck is like
Cybertruck, I feel a little bit less inclined to.
But I saw one guy
give dispensation to
Toyota across the back of his Cybertruck, which is very funny.
That is funny.
Oh.
That's funny. You got to give it props for that. Let's see. We get any of these clips, or should we move on? Oh,
well, you want to talk about Social Security, right?
Oh yes. We have somebody who listens to our show who has some some inside information. We've helped connect her to some people who can disseminate that. But there are insiders who are talking about what's going on at Social Security right now. And the Government Executive is a sort of trade magazine that we keep an eye out. And there is a real sense within the Social Security Administration. Yesterday, we heard from Martin O'Malley, the former administrator of the Social Security Administration, also the guy who I believe could have won in 2016. He could have beat Trump. That there is a full-on assault on Social Security Administration workers. And understand, like, particularly in the context of the low information voters who voted for Trump, but just broadly speaking, Americans know very little about how their government works. I would be surprised, or wouldn't be surprised, if a significant percentage of people who are on Medicaid are not aware that the federal government created Medicaid, pays for Medicaid. I don't know what that number is, 10, 20, 30%, 40%. And I don't, it would be nice if we had an electorate and a population that was aware of its government more than it is, and that have more interest. But it's not necessarily the easiest thing to get savvy about this stuff. You could listen to this show, I guess, particularly if you're interested in Social Security. But aside from that, Social Security Administration in recent days has initiated a flurry of actions aimed at decimating its workforce, and that Democrats warn are an effort to sabotage the agency and prepare to privatize its functions. The reason why you inhibit the Social Security Administration is the same reason why they love to complain about the DMV. Now, my experience at the DMV has never been as painful as my experience at the cable company. Never. It's never going to come close.
How about with your health insurance company?
Or the amount of work that I put into my private health insurance. It's literally a second job. And DMV, sometimes you go, it's crowded, depending on which city you're in. But they know what they're doing. You get in there and you get it done. I've waited for like an hour at cable just to return my cable box. But the point is what they want to do is they want to make Social Security dysfunctional. They want to drive a wedge between Social Security and the general population. It's the most beloved of government programs. After a rash of abrupt retirements of senior leaders across the agency last week, the agency on Friday confirmed that it's seeking to shed 7,000 employees, which would bring its workforce down to 50,000 people. Now, that's approximately off the back of the book. If you're talking about let's just call it a 60,000 person or 57,000 person agency, to get rid of 7,000. You're talking about over 10% of the population. Last fall, the agency hit a 50-year staffing low after congressional Republicans refused to agree to append the agency's funding to account for fixed cost increases as part of continuing resolution to keep agencies open. In other words, they're renting buildings The buildings prices have gone up. Everything's gone up in terms of inflation. I don't know. Their paper clips may have gone up. Their computer software costs may have gone up. Their computers, they may have had to buy new computers, have gone up. 50-year staffing low. 50-year. And now they're going to cut another over 10%? The agency will consolidate its current 10 regional offices down to 4. So they're cutting their regional offices by greater than half. Incidentally, boomers are, we have one of the biggest contingencies probably that we've had in the history of the country on Social Security right now. Musk's Doge operatives have canceled leases for 45 field offices across the country, as well as the Office of Hearings Operations in White Plains, New York. We're watching the direct assault on the agency that provides perhaps the best functioning and the most beloved social insurance program we have in this country. And it's all being done without authorization, without having to take a vote, without Americans having a single say in it. And ding-dongs out there can pretend that Donald Trump had a mandate, whatnot. I dare them. I dare them to have Donald Trump go up and national television say, we are really cutting back on Social Security.
He won't.
No, he won't.
In the same way he wouldn't endorse Project 2025. It's almost like the guy is a sociopathic liar. And it's been proven to us over the past 10 years of his political career. He will lie and say anything in public and do whatever the hell he wants in private. He may try to justify it on the back end. But basically Mike Johnson is telling him our members are concerned about the optics of touching that third rail, cutting Social Security and Medicare, what's the most expedient way for him to do it? King Trump, using the Russ vote. I never remember what it is. Russ vote method of just gutting it from the administrative state side.
There's also a fun story about Russell Vogt trying to shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and then realizing he's been caught and it's illegal and a judge is telling him you can't do this. And now they're pretending that they never tried to shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And what are you talking about? Except for they put it all in writing.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Elon Musk's lawyers arguing he's not leading Doge. Like, are you joking?
All right, we're going to head into the fun half of the program. We'll try and lighten it up a little bit. Look, the bottom line is, in here, let's tell this one story about the Democrats so that there's at least we're going out with something positive to say.
About the Democrats?
I mean...
Shockingly, yes.
Well, okay. And I'm not going to qualify it. I'm just going to say, let's hope that this is the reporting we're seeing now is indicative. But there's two things to be, feel positive about. One is that all of the pushback and the amplification of the reporting and the reporting of, those meals, those squeezy tubes of peanut butter, set to be sent to kids who are literally wasting away, ended up causing enough of a stink that it was reversed. A month ago, maybe even just weeks ago, the Democrats looked like they were going to heed the advice of James Carvell from his, 75,000 square foot house in God knows where, to do nothing. Just sit back and do nothing, wait 30 days. It's all going to fall apart on them. Don't worry. You don't have to communicate to the American public anything. They'll just see it. Because we know how adept the American public is and how we know that there's no other forces that are going to inhibit the real story from getting out. I mean, just absolute, bonkers. So much so that, people from ranging across the political spectrum saying to Democrats, you really should do something. It's not enough to say presidents come and go, but the Lord is always on the chair. That's not enough. Even if Rachel Maddow makes you feel uncomfortable as a Democrat, you know you are really out of touch with what's going on. And talk about a lagging indicator.
Yeah. By the way, Biden tried this, didn't communicate anything. Trump got elected. So
I'm staying in the race.
Or couldn't communicate anything. Sorry.
So Politico reports, and that's from this morning at 4:45 a.m. I imagine the reporting was done last night. One senior House Democratic aide says nobody wants a shutdown, but they don't feel like aiding and abetting what's happening with Musk and Trump taking a wrecking ball to healthcare in particular, said one senior Democratic aide. Why would we be complicit in that? What they're referring to is we are what? It's the 13th or the 15th? 14th is when the government is scheduled to shut down, 10 days from today. The only thing that they're going to pass, because they did their budget resolution, they're giving themselves until really September to start working on the new budget for 2026. The only thing they can pass is a continuing resolution, which is the budget we have now just continues into the future. Now, that's almost like a cut because inflation has increased. It's a cut for the IRS because there's $20 billion from the last one that was cut because of a deal that that Biden made. And at one point, we've played clips of Johnson saying, we're going to do a clean CR, except for maybe, and when Caitlin Collins said, wait a second, Elon Musk is cutting stuff. He's not doing it legally, but he's cutting stuff. This continuing budget resolution is going to fly in the face of that because if the Social Security Administration is supposed to get a $10 million budget for operations, I'm making up a number, and Elon Musk is in there and just eliminated $2 million of that, and you pass a budget that says they get $10 million, well, how does that work? And he goes, well, we may have some little things in there that we'll mix in and whatnot to address that. And what he was talking about is we'll cut the Social Security budget. We'll have a little rider on there. Well, Democrats are now saying, A, we're not going to sign off on that. And B, we're not going to sign off on a clean continuing resolution of the budget. Why should we if the president thinks he has the authority to go in and cut regardless of what we vote for anyways? Why do you need Congress to sign? Why do you need our votes?
Right. Mike Johnson is asking the Democrats in his own chamber, in his own branch of government, to make their jobs obsolete. And he's willing to jump off that bridge with Donald Trump, basically, or on behalf of Donald Trump. And
understand, they need Democratic votes because there's no way they can just get a clean continuing resolution. At least they believe so. Now, it's possible maybe all of the Republicans will be there and they won't lose 1 or 2 votes in the House. But I find that hard to believe. But we'll see. But this is Rachel Bade writing in Politico, reporting a senior Democratic lawmaker was blunter. At some point, you have to have a goddamn backbone. I'm not giving them a blank check until September. Well, this is interesting. I love to hear Democrats actually talk. Now, we'll see if they actually do have a goddamn backbone, because it's a little bit vague. At some point, you've got to have a backbone. But that may, maybe the internal monologue is, but not right now. Rachel Bade, I don't know who she is, writes, that's a big pivot from just a few weeks ago. In early February, I poo-pooed the left's push to use the March 14th government funding deadline to make a stand against Musk, and then heard from a number of senior Democratic officials on both sides of the Capitol who privately agreed with my assessment. A Democrat-induced shutdown, they agreed, would backfire on their party politically and only empower Musk even more to slash and burn his way through federal agencies. And they were frustrated with the base for not seeming to understand that playing with fire wasn't the answer. You'll recall Richie Torres, I resent and reject that we're not doing anything, in Politico, maybe written by Rachel Bade. You'll recall Hakeem Jeffries going on TV shows saying the extreme left protests me as much as the extreme right. Well, guess what, folks? It worked. You got the message through to them. Those phone calls that you made, it worked.
Keep it up.
Is this going to make a massive difference in the great scheme of things? Maybe not. Probably not. But we are now in a fight for literally for inches. Literally in a fight for inches. And when you called after Richie Torres complained that I resent and reject and this and that, it changed. It changed something. Maybe it didn't change his mind,
no,
but it changed other people's minds.
And I just want to point out really quickly that when he says something like that, that is functionally the same as that Republican who walked out of that town hall yesterday, the senator from Kansas, basically saying, I turn my back on my constituents and I resent the fact that you're asking me to do my job.
Well, how could they come to a good faith agreement when Elon could just say, well, actually, that's a secret fraud?
But the point is, 3 weeks ago, they thought their strategy was different. And here's a key quote. Second senior House Democratic aide said, people now feel like the more perilous position is giving votes without the perception there's been any change in accountability. Now, what do they mean by more perilous position? They mean for their own political futures.
Yeah.
They go on to say the incentive structure right now is to not provide votes for the Republicans. You people create the incentive structure for them. You're fighting against other constituencies. They're donors. You're fighting against maybe their half-baked ideologies. You know, Richie Torres is for a reason announcing that he is working on creating a bipartisan Congressional Crypto Caucus. There is one reason why he's doing that. Put up his tweet.
Yep.
There is one reason why Richie Torres is joining with Republicans to create a Congressional Crypto Caucus. And that one reason is money. Because when they start writing that the incentive structure has changed because so many people called and so many voters said, hey, we got a problem with you doing nothing. Sitting around listening to James Carville doing nothing to show the American public that what's going on with Elon Musk is wrong. Richie Torres' response to that is, I got to get my money from somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
From somebody who is in favor of destroying our regulatory administrative state. And that is the crypto boys.
Which it's not a coincidence that Richie Torres is one of the biggest lackeys for AIPAC. So he's shown and auditioned for the fact that he can be bought by right-wing money. And he's 100%. Doing it again for crypto.
Yep. Any money that's playing in DC, crypto is a very good indicator if you'll just take it. You'll just take it, whatever it means.
Yep. House Democrats, even in private, during a recent meeting between Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and his committee leaders, top appropriator Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut steamed about how Speaker Mike Johnson was going to try and make them swallow the clean funding extension. No effing way, she shouted, a person in the room told me. Jeffries didn't push back, and now his leadership team is gauging whether his members are willing to take this fight all the way. So listen, call your Congress people, regardless, obviously, if they're Democrats, and tell them no vote for the Republicans, do not help them keep the government open. They must indicate to the American public that what's going on is fundamentally wrong in a very distinct and dramatic way. And then also tell them anybody who's supporting the Crypto Caucus will not be getting their vote. Let Richie Torres be the only Democrat in this Crypto Caucus when this is done. So it can be pretty clear exactly what it is. These are the same people who got Sherrod Brown voted out. Same exact people. Incidentally, Donald Trump yesterday, apparently there's a big crypto convention on Friday or something. It is rumored, it's certainly been mentioned in the past, that Trump is looking to get rid of capital gains tax on crypto, which is insane. I mean, it's utterly insane. You sell your crypto, like there's capital gains tax on gambling. And they're talking about getting rid of it on crypto.
It's almost like he has a personal financial incentive. We need to know what's happening here. What is his financial relationship with Elon Musk, with Andreessen, with all of these tech guys and their cryptocurrency scheme? We know that there was the meme coin sold off for both Melania and Trump right around the inauguration, created quick sell-off, similar to what happened in Argentina with Milei, which also used shock therapy to plunge the economy into a much worse situation, nearly 10-point increase since, I think, late 2023 in a year and a half in terms of the poverty rate in Argentina. Milei is also doing these crypto meme coin scams. That's the model here. That's the model. And as we were saying about the tariffs, they may want a recession. They may want it because then, as Matt was saying, they can buy everything up on the cheap. And if all of their money is in this separate, just like area of the economy that's just about speculation for speculation's sake, that's not going to get hurt as much in the short term by tariffs on goods and services and increased prices. So they'll be able to still have all of their billions. And that means more that those billions that are untouched can go towards private equity, buying all these other things up. Well, also, and cutting.
And getting rid of their political opponents.
Exactly.
You get that extra 20%. I sold my crypto for $50 million, $100 million. I get an extra $20 million. That goes to attack the politicians who have an issue with me not paying taxes on this.
That's where some of the Trump tax cut money went.
Maybe we'll call Richie Torres again.
We should.
His office.
You should, if you're his constituent especially. But if people are looking for a book that kind of navigates them through this time period, I've been re-listening to The Shock Doctrine just like on my way into work, just because it reminds me and grounds me in terms of like what they really are trying to do here. And it's never, I don't think, fully been done to the United States in the way that we did it to Iraq or Russia or countries in Latin America. But the call is coming from inside the house.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break.
Wasn't this the segment where we were supposed to end on a positive note?
Yeah. I'm positive you should be calling in.
Richie Torres feels harassed. That's the positive for today.
Call in to your Congress people. What's the number again? 202.
It's on this, just the capital switchboard.
We will put it in the podcast and YouTube description. Call your Congress people. Remind them, no votes for a clean resolution. We need to have curtails on Elon Musk's law breaking. And also tell your Congress people, don't join the Crypto Caucus. We're watching you.
Yep. 202-224-3121. That is, I sound like I'm leaving a voicemail. 202-224-3121.
When I said call Richie Torres, I meant we literally called his office on the show a couple weeks ago.
I remember. I was out, right? You told me about that.
Left a couple messages.
Just get his personal.
Somehow I got him blocked by Richie too, which I think he's going to find is probably a mistake on Twitter.
He's pretty free with the blocking.
He blocked me before I ever had an interaction with him.
Yeah.
But we'll see if that changes. Also, I want to do a shout out to folks who would normally be watching Hassan. Apparently, it's temporary though, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, of course.
What did he do? He
said if Trump was serious about Medicaid fraud, he would He would pursue the harshest penalty against Rick Scott.
I mean, I don't
Capital
believe capital punishment seems. Yeah, I mean that seems excessive. I'm against the capital punishment across the board. Although I wouldn't mind him being perp locked.
Lock him up.
Folks want us to cover the speech tonight in the event that Donald Trump has a stroke. I think it's unlikely, but that's why we'll do the next three with the hopes that he does.
Yep.
I mean, not the hopes that he does, but I'm saying like if he does, the hope that we would be able to alert the authorities.
If he does have a stroke, I would like it on camera.
Yeah. Oh, wait, he's unbanned.
Okay, good.
Poggers. Poggers.
It was all those poggers you said yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like
if you chant poggers enough, people get unbanned. That's the way it works.
Victory for free speech.
That's what prayers do.
Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. If you're on Twitch, you can give us your sub for the month. If you've got a Prime membership, you don't have to pay anything. You just redirect it to us for a month. If you listen to the show, give us a good review on iTunes. That still matters. And if all else fails, you can become a member. Join themajorityreport.com. You get the free show, free of commercials. You get the fun half. You get to IM us. You get to feel like you're helping allow and help this show survive and thrive. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin, real movement partners. They really treat their farmers right, protect them through bad growing seasons, good growing seasons, increases in prices, whatever it is. Justcoffee.coop. ESVN on hiatus, Left Reckoning. Look at Matt with the Left Reckoning merch.
You got the
What a horror.
Wow.
Exactly. Left Reckoning.
That hat is nice. Emma came in today. Was like, do you have a black?
I want it in the black.
We do. There's a black version. Left Reckoning store. .com/store. Also tonight, Jason Miles on talking about his work at Means TV, and we'll probably be covering a little bit of the speeches, maybe a little bit of Bernie's response in the post game tonight. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Do you go to like Chelsea Piers and golf with that?
Chelsea Piers, no. Chelsea they have golf.
I think they have a driving range.
They have a range.
Not a Chelsea Piers member, unfortunately.
I don't think you have to be.
You're thinking of the gym, but there's the Chelsea Piers.
It's like literally at the piers where you hit the ball into the.
I've
I don't
only
think it
gone
goes into the
bowling
water
there.
or whatever it is.
I haven't been down there. No.
Yeah. Although there's some more fun, cooler bowling places here in Brooklyn, honestly, than there are in Manhattan. That's where we have some Brooklyn supremacy here. Brooklyn Bowl, or the other ones. I forget the name of that other lane. Anyway, this is not good broadcasting. Let's go into the fun half.
See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare.
Bring back DJ Denner.
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs that look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males
psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what?
What?
Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report, fun half. Let's start with something that is acrid tasting and bitter and disgusting. Of course, I'm talking about Rahm Emanuel. Here he is. I'm not going to say every one of our problems can be traced back to this guy, but so many of our problems can be traced to this guy.
Yeah. You know how the right is obsessed about the fact that they can say the R word on Twitter now and not get banned? This is the big deal. I remember back in the day when Rahm Emanuel was Obama's chief of staff, he called the advocates within the Democratic Party pushing for single payer effing R word. So that's what I think about when I look at this.
This guy was horrible as a DCCC chair. He's given credit for the 2006 Democratic victory, and I would counter with the fact that leadership was literally harboring somebody who had been identified as like predatory behavior on same-sex pages was enough for the American public. I mean, at one point, I think it was the whip of the Republican Party had to have a press conference and surrounded himself with children so that nobody would bring up the scandal as a way, because like you wouldn't talk about this in front of little kids. And he had an array of horrible candidates, all turned out to be a bunch of blue dogs that all had to self-finance themselves. And so much of the Democratic Party has gone in the way of Rahm Emanuel. When he went to Chicago, all he did was attack the teachers' unions. He privatized So much stuff in Chicago that they're still sort of like reeling from it for years later. I could just go on and on. He was, I think he was with the Clinton administration and was part of their sort of privatization and their triangulation. Just a horrible all-around guy. Everything bad about Democrats is embodied in this guy. And here he is trying to, he literally thinks like this is, I am sure in his mind, like I'm going to help the Democratic cause by throwing trans people under the bus. Here he is on Bill Maher.
I read that the current mayor of Chicago has an approval rating of 6.6%.
Round it up, 7.
Okay. But I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do harakiri on live TV.
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago as the person?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors like the mayor of San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those 3 things and your city's going to be fine. We've gone through 5 years where people became way too permissive of culture. They were all, which is why everything's
Pause it for a second. Pause it for a second. Now, you see, the problem he had is he didn't know what point he was making. So he brings up Eric Adams. But then he has to pivot away from that because he realizes, wait, this is contrary to the point that I thought I was going to make here. Eric Adams is not some woke. Eric Adams ran
pro-cop
on just rolling in the cops. So like he's so full of shit, but so determined to make this point that he's going to have to like sort of round the block a couple of times until he sees a spot.
Right.
This is what's going on here.
But I mean, they are, I guess, the 3 mayors he listed, people of color. So they must be woke, right? Even though we all know that Adams was running as the most right-wing Democrat, a former Republican, and there were think pieces about how he's the future of the Democratic Party because he's so pro-cop. I mean, to lump him in with Brandon Johnson, who, his approval rating's really bad now, and he was a more progressive candidate, and Karen Bass, it makes no sense. But he's touting Lurie in San Francisco, because Lurie is the exact kind of mayor that Rahm Emanuel is. Very pro-business, neoliberal. He's the guy that's trying to make workers, compelling them to go back to work because he represents Blackstone and private equity and commercial real estate conglomerates that are obsessed with like keeping up their rent prices. So those are the politics that he's referring to.
Became way too permissive of a culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster. Yeah. And our school, and I'll say
Pause
this
it
about
for a
our
second.
schools.
Go back. Permissive of the culture, and that's why things are locked up. Like, what culture is it that he's talking about? This is just all such bullshit. It is exactly what Eric Adams ran on. Yep. And Eric Adams, aside from being a criminal, is deeply unpopular here.
Became way too permissive of a culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster. Yeah. And our school, and I'll say this about our schools. I don't want to hear another word about the locker room. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom. I agree. We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education is talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word they and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it.
Well, that's the point. He's not trans. He's just some creepy ass guy who would have, basically used Porky's as which is a movie that was like a super date rapey that we all grew up on in the 80s, as his sort of bellwether. Just because you're a creepy ass white cis dude does not mean that trans people have the same sort of disposition and disrespect for other people that you do.
It's a relief to know that Rahm Emanuel is going after the predators here, because before trans people were more out in the open, there was no such thing as rape and sexual assault, apparently. Because
incidentally,
you need a disguise to do it.
I mean, not for nothing, but the Title IX clarification on bathrooms was issued when this guy was chief of staff of the Obama administration.
Right.
I mean, he's so full of shit. So full of shit.
Also, he when he was ambassador to Japan, had a big to-do at the Hiroshima and Nagasaki remembrance thing, because he didn't show up because Israel wasn't invited. And I'll just say, if there was an issue that really hurt the Democrats in the past year, I would point towards the support of Israel as it conducts a genocide more than I would
1,000%.
There was just an analysis.
It's okay to be very, very ID Paul when it comes to Israel.
There was just an analysis done that I think trans issues rated 22nd out of 22nd in terms of in terms of voter concerns. They're making this up because he doesn't want to acknowledge the reality that 100%. His politics contributed to this moment. And then I'm sorry, but when he talks about the culture and includes, if he was just talking about Johnson and Karen Bass is like a standard Democrat, but to include Eric Adams in that, like, I'm sorry, that sounded very racist to me. It just did.
This is a guy who's out there trying to justify his type of corporate politics.
Yeah.
And they're scapegoating all sorts of things. And the flip side of this is the Democrats yesterday in the Senate did not provide votes for cloture for a ban on transgender athletes in schools around the country. Now, Trump already issued an executive order on Title IX, and the NCAA responded by changing their policy, essentially banning trans women from their sports. Now, you should know that means that 10 out of the 500,000 student athletes in Division I, Division II, Division III were banned. So now women's sports are safe, everybody. Can't you feel it? And now they have they tried to pass a law to have, I guess, middle school, elementary school, high school coaches inspect the genitalia of the girls on their teams to make sure that their their junk is in the right place for them to play in these high school and middle school sports. And good for the Democrats for blocking this bill.
Yeah, I mean, that just, by the way, as they pretend they care about groomers, you want to have coaches in high school looking at the genitalia of your daughters, of your kids.
It's the only way to protect girls in sports, Emma, is to have the coach inspect their genitalia.
I'm just like transporting my brain back to when I was like 13 and thinking about the violation and like the traumatic, I mean, they are freaks. And part of me thinks it's just like a roundabout way for these closet pedos to be able to look at little kids' genitalia no matter what it is.
The party that just last week made a spectacle of the Epstein documents by parading them around, and Jim Jordan, a guy who has covered up a massive abuse scandal at Ohio State, played a Rickroll. You think those people might not be serious about protecting young girls?
They were protecting girls from the point, I'm helped out here with the math, 0.002% of all athletes.
I feel so bad for those kids too, the 10 that just wanted to participate in the goddamn game.
Here's the point. It's not just about those 10. It is about the thousands of younger people who are trans who look at this and get the message, you need to disappear. You need to be disappeared. You need to go away. You need to die.
Yep.
It is about this message that's being communicated to even non-athletes. That's what it's ultimately about. And then we're going to protect girls. And now I look back on it. My daughter played junior high basketball. I can't believe she was able to do that without having the coach inspect all the genitalia of all the girls on their team so that we could be sure that they were safe in playing this game.
This is about control.
And yeah, by the way, we're forcing them to give birth.
This is about controlling who gets to be, because for them, a woman, and this is why this is only the focus on the girls and women's sports and not the men, is because they have this anxiety that they're going to be attracted to a trans woman, and they want to police womanhood in a way that is still within the kind of purview of men. Men get to define essentially what a woman is, and that doesn't get to be fluid at all. You're really only a woman if you get to be impregnated and carry my child, because a woman is of the man's rib. There can't be a trans woman, because what would she be if she wasn't just a vessel for my sperm? That's like where it comes down, what it comes down to. It's very tied to our reproductive rights also being taken away.
And, you know, I have no illusions about Republicans trying to use this as an electoral cudgel, because it's the same thing they did with marriage equality. It's the same thing they did with women getting to use their maiden names. It's the same thing they did with black people getting the right to vote. I mean, on and on and on. But to see Democrats out there pretending that this was an issue that prevented Democrats from winning is absurd. It's absurd.
It's absurd also because in 2022, Republicans ran on transphobia and they got smacked.
Yeah, we know it doesn't resonate.
But Trump was on the ballot this time, and he defies the rules of a lot of politics and turned out a lot of low propensity voters that voted for him, and a lot of lower propensity Democratic partisans stayed home because of the genocide in Gaza, which, by the way, Rahm Emanuel, to bring it full circle, is in full support of.
They'll take the wrong lesson from every midterm. Like they took the wrong lesson in 2022, but also 2018 when.
But this isn't taking a lesson.
No, I mean like emphasizing a lesson.
This is him going out trying to create a narrative. And people need to push back on this narrative because it's a false one, and he's doing it to protect his corporate interests. That's the thing. Just like the vote against the continuing resolution. Their incentive structure is a function of what's going to be more perilous of an action for us to take. And sometimes they need to hear from us to understand that it's more perilous for you to do this than that.
Yeah.
Speaking of peril, let's look into what Bobby Kennedy's been up to when he's not trying to police the speech of protesters on college campuses.
The true pathogen in this country.
So there's a measles outbreak. Let's just check in on Bobby Kennedy. This is from, how long ago was this? This was ages ago, right? Where Bobby Kennedy was at the cabinet meeting at the White House with a T-shirt wearing Elon Musk there. Really, they got a lot more formal later in the week at the White House, incidentally. And here is Bobby Kennedy explaining the measles, in quotes, outbreak, in quotes.
There's a measles outbreak in Texas at the moment in which a child is reported to have died. Do you have concerns about that, and have you asked Secretary Kennedy to look into that?
Well, why don't we, Bobby, do you want to speak on that?
Well, we are following the measles epidemic every day. I think there's 124 people who have contracted measles at this point, mainly in Kings County, Texas. Mainly, we're told in the Mennonite community, there are 2 people who have died, but we're watching it, and there are about 20 people hospitalized, mainly for quarantine. We're watching it. We put out a post on it yesterday, and we're going to continue to follow it. Incidentally, there have been 4 measles outbreaks this year. In this country last year, there were 16. So it's not unusual. We have measles outbreaks every year.
You sound a little under the weather yourself.
You sound a little under the weather yourself. Oh, we have measles outbreaks every year.
Yeah.
Every year. Not that big of a deal a week ago. You know, the funny thing about diseases, communicable diseases, is that they get worse unless you actively try and suppress their spread. And in terms of public policy, the way that you do that is you try and have as much people vaccinated as possible, so there's just not as many places and opportunities for the disease to spread. And you also communicate to the public this is serious. And it turns out, like a week later, Bobby Kennedy has a different idea of public health, apparently. Don breaks on Marblehead. Again, I'll use that Massachusetts saying.
Never heard it before, but.
Kennedy writes in an op-ed. Now, here's what's really gross about this. He just does it on Fox News. Now, maybe it's because he knows that it's all the right-wing followers of his that don't get vaccinations. But here he goes. Measles outbreak is a call to action for all of us. Oh, I guess it is an outbreak now. I guess it's not just normal. That's weird. I wonder what changed. Oh, he went in and heard from a doctor? Let's just read a little bit of this. MMR vaccine is crucial to avoiding potentially deadly disease. Keep scrolling down a little bit. As Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human, I'm deeply concerned about the recent measles outbreak. That's weird. He went from it's completely normal this type of year 7 days ago to now deep concern. The situation has escalated rapidly. Oh, really? How much rapidly?
But there were 16 last year. You said, Robert.
There's 146 confirmed cases since late January. Like, has it really just escalated rapidly in the past week, or has it been escalating rapidly throughout that entire time?
Right.
And then he says, like, it's the first measles-related fatality in the United States in over a decade. Well, guess what? It was last week, too. Scroll on. Vaccines not only protect individual children from measles, but also contribute to community immunity.
Oh. What's that?
Protecting those who are unable to be vaccinated due to medical reasons.
Oh. Sounds woke.
Measles is a highly contagious respiratory illness with certain health risks. Now, okay, we go on with this. But then, apparently, what they're doing is they're still dropping the ball on vaccinations. They're still talking skeptically about the MMR vaccination in the schedule. They are now pushing vitamin A as a treatment for measles, which is all well and good. But doctors already understand this. When you communicate this to the public, there's a treatment for this. They start going, well, maybe I don't need to take a vaccine. Maybe I don't need a vaccine because it is much better to take the vaccine than to need the treatment. It's don't play with fire, not, hey, don't worry, we have a fire department.
Right. Right.
And Here is the outrage that Kennedy dared to even say people should get their measles vaccine. This thread put together by the Real Truther. Mask off moment, says Patriot. They're all blue checks too, I think.
Of course.
Mask off moment for RFK Jr.
Wait,
telling
he was
people to get
wearing a mask before? A face diaper?
Nice.
More like
Idiot
mask
puts
on.
the outbreak in quotes.
Yes, telling people to get the MMR vaccine due to the measles quote unquote outbreak in Texas. So much for quote unquote Maha. Yikes. Keep going down. Let's see what we got. Ian Carroll. I don't know who that is. Blue check. Hey, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Hell no. What the hell is this? The call to action is 1 in 32 children in America today have autism. Just because Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are burning their reputations to the ground doesn't mean you should too. Oh, I guess that was the Epstein thing.
Yeah. I also, can you guys just like stop talking about autism in this way? It is so honestly ableist, and you know, sometimes I think like whatever. This is where it is ableist, because they speak about autism as if it's like a cancer diagnosis or something like that, where we're still understanding that autism is a spectrum and there are people that fall along it, and we already know as well that it's been proven when they took the thimerosal out of the vaccines, in the early part of this century, that it had no effect on autism rates. So they talk about it like it's this disease that's being it's a binary, but it's a spectrum in the same way. Yeah,
took the thimerosal out of it. We don't.
But it's offensive.
That there's a rise in diagnosis is simply because people are diagnosing it more, not because it is more prevalent in humanity.
Everybody, when I was a kid, everybody was completely normal.
And it'd be nice if the people that are trying to make a name the Epstein files,
nobody was atypical.
Would not bring in bullshit about vaccines.
Everybody was typical. Here is Stu Peters. Oh, no blue check. What happened?
Oh, this is a really nasty guy, Stu Peters.
The only thing Bobby is, quote, fixing is to put needles in arms and pumping kids and healthy people full of autism-causing MMR shots. RFK is a vaccine, in quotes, pusher. You were duped.
Oh my gosh, just the fact that he says needles in arms. They're just afraid of needles, you little babies.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Dr. Jane Ruby.
Anxiety in the population. That's why this does numbers.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. is a fraud. Not only is he pushing the fake measles narrative, he's telling you his mission is to regain your trust in the same federal health agencies that spent 5 years trying to kill you.
You are so
Not
hysterical.
stop COVID-19 poisonous mRNA shots.
These are Chicken Littles of needles.
Keep going. Let's see. Healthy Ranger. Health Ranger.
Wow, this is a great first line.
If RFK Jr. actually wrote this, then he's been captured and replaced with a robot clone.
That means he didn't actually write it then.
Nearly every statement in this paragraph is from a Fox News article attributed to him is blatantly false and contradicts his previous statements on vaccine risk. You know what? Don lights on this mobblehead, too. It turns out maybe Bobby Kennedy's been lying to you about a lot of stuff.
Oh, wow, yeah. Guy from a political family.
I don't know what you're talking about. Measles, quote, measles is a highly contagious respiratory illness with certain health risks, especially to unvaccinated individuals. The virus spreads through direct contact with infectious droplets. When an infected person breathes, coughs, or sneezes, early symptoms include high fever, cough, runny nose, and red, watery eyes.
He just quotes the whole thing for the rest of the thing.
That's it?
It's just self-evidently wrong, but even it sounds more accurate to me.
All right, keep going. Next guy. This is pretty fun. Andrea Lynn, blue check. RFK Jr. is pushing the toxic MMR vaccine for the so-called, quote, measles outbreak, despite previously stating it causes autism. Parens, it does.
It doesn't.
He and Maha are complete frauds.
Well, we could have told you that.
Yes, that's true. That's what we've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give a medal to these people. It's not necessarily for what they think it is, but I still want to give them a medal. The more dissent, the better. I can't tell you, says Dr. Henry E. Lee. I wonder if these are actual doctors. Can you say you're a doctor on Twitter if you're not?
If you pay for a blue check, you can.
I can't tell you how much I do not approve of this message. I worked my ass off Friday for this? ?
What?
Fine, we'll do it alone then.
Also, doctors are not immune from being cranks.
I love a doctor complaining about working on a Friday.
I know somebody who's a doctor in New York State who was prescribing hydroxychloroquine during the pandemic. So, yeah, there can be a lot of crank doctors.
Candace Owens. Yeah, this is absolutely wild. I'm thinking I might need to release the MMR episode of my Shot in the Dark series for free, so parents understand this is not a safe vaccine at all. The combination vaccines are the worst. Ironically, I learned this from RFK Jr. You know what I love?
This is so crazy. I got to promote myself.
You know what I love? No, this is what it's fantastic. Keep this up. You know how you can tell that Candace Owens is in this to save the children? Because she might need to release the episode for free so parents can understand it. That's how you know she's in this for the kids. She wants to make sure that kids are safe. So much so, she's thinking she might need to release the episode for free. We had to keep it behind the paywall for an period of time for the safety of the kids' safety. That's why it was behind the paywall, because I care so much about the kids.
You're playing the game called capitalism.
All right, so one more. Should we do one more? This is fantastic. Jessica Rojas. Now, I want to be clear. I'm enjoying this, but I'm not going to enjoy it when they don't get the flu vaccine schedule right because they've waited too long. And I'm not going to enjoy it when there's kids dying of measles. And I'm not going to enjoy it when there are people who, dying of the flu or RSV or dealing with, I don't know what other vaccinations they're going to either pull off the market or suggest that people don't take. I'm laughing now because I like to see these assholes getting pissed at Bobby Kennedy. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. And God help us if that bird flu ends up in enough bodies with a different type of human-to-human flu. I mean... Meanwhile, let's go back to enjoying this. Jessica Rojas, Cats Scare Me 2021 blue check. Unless Kennedy comes out and disavows that very pro-vaccine article put out by Fox, where he lied several times, he has tricked us all and nothing will ever change. Big Pharma wins again and the innocent children will continue to lose. You know, if you really cared about Big Pharma, push for what the Biden administration started in negotiating drug prices. Your president, one of the first things he did was to come in and kill the commission that was looking into negotiating and finding out how to drive prices down. First thing he did. Let's go back to Jessica Rojas.
Also, sorry, the innocent children thing, these people talking about innocent children, who dies from raw milk? It's kids. Look at infant mortality and pasteurization, you freaks.
He would never have said, quote, go get your MMR at your doctor's office. He would have talked about MMR shedding, the adverse reactions from MMR, and the various connections to autism.
I love how...
Maha.
My heart.
My heart.
My heart goes out to you.
Is with you all. This is a huge betrayal.
Oh.
Yeah, what you want is a bunch of lies that you idiots line up behind. That's all it ever was. Congratulations. It's all lies.
I like how MMR can shed, but not viruses.
Yeah.
Like the
You don't
vaccine
measles.
shed.
Measles goes to other people. I don't know if you call it shedding.
Well, you should. Can we pull up that graph just to make this point?
For me, anti-vaxxer.
God, I would not want to hear him sing opera. This is from
That's
2019.
from Evita.
So this, Evita, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Old reference.
No, I've seen Madonna. Her version. Okay, so this is from PBS from 5 years ago, but it does just show just go to scroll down a little because it's like this is the number of cases and how precipitously it declined. 1963, that's when the measles vaccine came out.
That's a coincidence.
What do you know?
That's a coincidence.
What do you know? And
Well,
even in 2019, it was on the rise because this anti-vax BS was starting to really ramp up. But I would be curious to see what it looks like now.
Dave Rubin was doing content about how the hippie leftists weren't getting vaccinated and putting us all at risk with Cara Santa Maria of Skeptic's Guide to the Universe about 10 years ago in the early part of that. You can still find that.
Is that right?
Yeah, I have it on a tweet.
That's fantastic. What should we get to here? Should we get to?
We should do your.
Okay, yeah. Let's do the.
Let's have fun.
Yeah. Speaking of Maha, I wonder how. I wonder if she's upset.
Who?
The one of the people on
Jillian, whatever her name is.
on the thing was Maha, the Biggest Loser person.
Talk about the biggest loser.
Jillian Michaels.
Oh, she's like that turf, right? And a Maha person.
A TV star.
Which one should we start with?
These are the people that are independents, but actually are right wingers, but they're trying to find a new entry point.
Like Joe Rogan, failed TV stars doing independent media. It's interesting.
Right.
I mean,
and they all still have agents.
No knock on all failed.
I mean, some
TV
of it
stars.
works out. I mean, it sounds like a bad situation. And stuff.
Yeah.
It's a longer section, but I like the Doge part.
All right, let's start with that. I just there's a New York Times article today out. Here it is. I'll just put this up just beforehand. It says, if you can't read it, I'll read the title. Struggling with errors, Doge deletes billions more from list of savings. Incidentally, they erased another $4 billion in additional savings. The group had erased or altered more than 1,000 contracts it claimed to cancel, representing more than 40% of all the contracts listed on its site last week. The deleted list included 5 of the 7 largest savings that it had claimed for credit just last week. It was the second time in a week that Doge had deleted some of its greatest claims of success. Early last week, it erased all 5 of the largest savings it had claimed because these are contracts that have already been fulfilled or were canceled 15, 20 years ago. I mean, damn. Posted this morning, the $400 million contract for armored Teslas that DropSite News got canceled now ranks as the single biggest savings made by Doge after correcting all of their other errors. Do you understand that the Trump administration came in and ordered $400 million of Musk Teslas, Tesla trucks, and now they've canceled it and said it was their biggest savings.
After they weren't able to get away with saying the Biden administration actually ordered it.
So I went on last Thursday, my day off. That was a huge mistake. On the Piers Morgan show. They send so many emails. I just thought it was going to be Piers Morgan and
I know.
I didn't know. And I went back and went through the emails, and I think I found the email. I think originally it was supposed to be Anna Kasparin was supposed to be on there, but she must have had to get off early.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was on in the segment before.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I was on with Benny Johnson, who I realized afterwards was one of the guys from Tenet Media who got all that money, that Russian money.
Yep.
And then this woman, I had no idea who she was. So I had no idea, who she was or what she was going to have to say. And that's
Seeing
it.
her face now, she's basically, I think she's a TERF, right? So she doesn't like trans people and thinks it takes away from feminism. And then is also a Maha person. So these are the folks that say they're independent, but they voted for Trump, and they're trying to find a new way to be on board the MAGA train.
I did not find this show particularly enjoyable or enlightening in any way. I got to be honest. But they had emailed me so many times in the past. And finally, they were recording on a Thursday, and I said, okay. And I didn't have to leave my house.
Sam, let's talk for a moment about the other big thing that's going on, which is this whole Doge
stuff with Elon Musk, you, I think, posted that the idea that Doge is in any way about efficiency is absolutely a joke. They're not doing an audit. They're destroying the apparatus of our government. What do you base that on?
Well, audits are done regularly of agencies by inspector generals. The first thing they did was to fire all those inspector generals and not replace them. A. B, audits that lead to firings within a couple of days are obviously not being done. The notion that this is about efficiency when you're laying off thousands of IRS agents, when it is well known that every dollar spent at the IRS returns for the government $6 or $7, you're clearly not talking about efficiency here as measured in any other way other than allowing wealthy people to get away with cheating on their taxes. I mean, I could go on, but there's absolutely no evidence that there's a single audit going on. To the extent that they've saved any money, it has been largely dismissed as clerical errors on their part, and we still have no substantiation about it. So it's
well, hang on. That's not true. I mean, there's some of the stuff that came out about USAID, for example, some of the way that American taxpayers' money was being squandered on ridiculous projects.
Oh, wait a second.
And it wasn't insignificant sums of money.
Wait a second. You can determine that you can have an opinion that it's squandered. I can have an opinion that it's squandered, but it's been appropriated by the Congress. And in America, we have actually both statutory, constitutional, and court cases that say the president of the United States and the executive branch cannot decide unilaterally that they're not going to appropriate money that Congress has appropriated. I mean, the line item video has been found to be unconstitutional. We have the Impoundment Control Act from 1974. We have Train v. New York City from 1974, which is a Supreme Court case which enforces that. What they're doing is fundamentally illegal. I mean, you may think that some of the spending is not worthy. I may think it's not worthy, but that's just not the way our government works.
Okay. Julian, you were shaking your head there.
Because it doesn't seem that the government is working. As a layman, when the USAID is exposed...
Pause. Can we just say, like, as a layman, as somebody who, like, sells caffeine pills for dietary purposes, like, that's not a normal layman.
And what does that mean, the government's not working? Like, what does that mean, the government's not working? Like, what is it that she thinks the government should be doing that's not working?
Yeah.
Like, the Postal Service is not working? The Social Security is not working? The IRS hadn't found billions more dollars? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau hadn't saved consumers billions of dollars?
$21 billion returned to consumers for an $800 million annual cost. That's called pretty efficiency, but a lot of efficiency, by the way. Hundreds, I think, or at least tens of millions of Americans receive those checks back from being scammed by our financial institutions.
I mean, she's not saying anything, and they're immediately going to go to essentially just bigotry and xenophobia with the USAID. They don't even have the wherewithal to, like, now, to her credit, at one point she does say, like, there are big payouts to corporations, which I am all in favor of them being genuinely anti-corporate. Right. And I will guarantee you that will not be happening.
No, because they represent the private businesses that benefit from a healthcare system that isn't public. Alternative medicine is an industry, and it's not regulated.
100%.
And she's promoting it, and I just got to say, it's very satisfying to hear you give all of the reasons that it's both, like, constitutionally reinforced, that the Congress has the power of the purse, and then the executive branch has to faithfully execute that, and then give those examples and hear her admit as a layman, but I'm just going to say the government doesn't work and use that as my hinge point, because it's very easy to say the government doesn't work because it doesn't work in the way that we want to improve it. We want to tax the wealthy more so the government is better and provides more services to people, perhaps universal health care, perhaps universal pre-K, perhaps child care, and canceling student debt. You've got to do that through taxing the wealthy. So, but she just says it's broken. So what's her explanation?
Would Medicare for All cover her caffeine pills?
That it has been, and all of a sudden we have this transparency that we've never had in my lifetime.
None of this stuff was hidden at all. None of this stuff was hidden at all. It's just that
so you're telling me that the average American knew that we were funding friggin' operas for trans people in
if
who
the
knows
average
where?
American was interested in what
nobody knew
USAID was supporting, they
come
could have
on,
just
man.
gone
Do
to the
you
website.
really believe that?
Yes,
Do you really
true.
believe that people knew this and this was common knowledge?
100% I
And there's
believe
no
it, because it's
question
100%
that some of this was a
None of this
slush
was
fund for the
secret.
CIA.
Well, actually, you know what? The truth is, you can both be right here. Right? Sam is right that it was there to be found.
Yeah.
And Gillian's right that absolutely nobody told the American people about the specifics. So you can both
you know
be
what can
right.
happen in our process of government?
No, I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it
defund
wasn't there. I'm not saying it wasn't there to be found. But Benny, it was only when Elon Musk and his young team.
Pause it for a second. You know how the American public is intimately aware of how the $900 billion annually is spent with the Defense Department.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or oil lease giveaways, or I don't know, corn subsidies, or any other functioning. In fact, I don't think most Americans realize that their Medicaid is necessarily paid by the government, or, you know, Medicare Advantage, what a ripoff it is for Americans. There's a lot of things that dwarf the tens of millions of dollars that are spent on Sesame Street in Iraq, which, you know, frankly, based upon what we did to that country, we should be putting a lot more into stuff like this. Or are we actually like helping fund things in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we promised that we would rebuild that country after we destroyed it.
There's been past studies that like 1 in 4 Americans, it ranges on in the election cycle, don't even know who the vice president is. So like if like she's saying that, of course they don't know these very obscure.
I discovered who the vice president is. I'm the one who's telling everybody.
The point is that we should be educating the public more about what our government does, but all of this has been available because of the inspectors general and what they do through the normal functions of our government.
No, it's not
auditing
even
these.
Listen, all this stuff that USAID did, except for maybe some of the covert stuff, is laid out on their website. We don't know anything that wasn't readily available before. Go ahead.
Benny, it was only when Elon Musk and his young team of guys with their sabers got into it, they found this stuff, right? And told people.
They didn't find it. They just they publicized it.
Well, exactly.
And,
but that's how the
publicize it with horrible context. Go ahead.
They publicized it.
Well, exactly.
And,
but that's how the that's how the American
authority.
That's how the American people found out about
authority
it.
To cut it.
Yes.
So Congress, Republicans control every house of Congress. They control the presidency. They could pass a bill tomorrow saying, we don't want to fund these things. But what's happening when they cut USAID is you've got literally 400,000 meals for children who are technically wasting away. It's in Africa. Maybe my guests don't care about that. But the fact is that they're sitting in warehouses in Rhode Island and in Georgia right now, food that is pre-digested practically because these kids are starving, and it's sitting in warehouses. It's going bad, and they have no way to ship it.
Okay.
Because USAID has been shut down.
All right, Benny.
I'm sorry.
Benny?
That's not constitutional or legal.
Okay, Benny.
It's incredible. So I've heard the Constitution thrown around a lot here. All right, let's talk about Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive branch has a clause called the vesting clause. The vesting clause makes one single man that is elected by the whole American people the only position in the federal government that has the entire whole of the country elect him is the president.
Pause it for a second. I just want to, like, because I'm sitting here going, like, I'm listening to this and I'm going, like, wait, where is he going with this? Like, the vesting clause. He's the only person to be, like, where is he going with this? And I will tell you, spoiler alert, nowhere. Nowhere. But go back, because I want you to feel he's building this argument with his voice as if I'm about to make this profound conclusion about the existence of a president who is the only person elected across the country. And
but the vesting power is about the public vesting the executive branch with, like, by electing him, essentially. This isn't about all right, whatever. Well, let's hear where he's going.
People. The only position in the federal government that has the entire whole of the country elect him is the president of the United States, who is vested with the power to oversee the executive. And that includes congressional spending. That includes the functionaries of the government.
First of all, I don't know what congressional spending really means. I don't want to get too technical here, although he's making a constitutional argument, this professor. There's no congressional spending. There is congressional appropriation. And those legislative powers to appropriate are both exclusive and explicit by the Constitution given to Congress. The executive has the exclusive power to execute the directives from Congress when it comes to appropriations. He's just making this up. He just read it. Somebody fed this to him. It's such a half-baked theory. It's just absurd. Go ahead. Go back a little bit.
President of the United States, who is vested with the power to oversee the executive. And that includes congressional spending. That includes the functionaries of the government, including the commander-in-chief. There are appointed judges. There are elected at state and local levels, members of Congress, but only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a
that means nothing. There is a legislative vesting clause. There is an executive vesting clause.
Yep.
There is a judicial vesting clause in terms of what their enumerated powers are. It has nothing to do with how they are elected or why they are elected. It is the government was set up in this way, and it's just by sheer sort of like talking like this, he thinks he's making a point.
And using the word vest, but we know that that is not one of the powers that is vested in that part of the Constitution. The part that we're describing about having the power of the purse is vested to Congress. Congress.
The powers that we're talking about typically are like pardons and treaties.
Yes.
not line item vetoes.
Right.
Only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a giant map in my studio. I don't know if your production team.
All right, pause it. Now, listen, this is where I made a huge mistake. This is where I made a huge mistake, and I'm going to own it. Because he's talking about this giant map in his studio. Continue. See if you can pick out what mistake I made at this point.
Here it is. This is what America decided in 2024. In a landslide and with the popular vote, the whole of the American people decided to vest a single man, Donald Trump, to hunt down waste, fraud, and abuse. Because while maybe there are some type of programs that you might view as just, what I view as just is feeding the American people. What I view as just is filling the potholes, educating, healthcare, and the capacity to serve Americans. And so what America voted for was America first, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was
simply... You've said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act, none of that. You can
pause it. Okay, listen, here is the mistake I made. When he pointed to his big map in his studio, I should have said, did Russia pay for that? Because they did. He got millions of dollars from the Russian government. Now, he didn't know He didn't know, he wasn't savvy enough to realize that Mr. Gregorian from Belgium wasn't real because, of course, of the one-page glossy CV that he got. But I should have asked at that point. So that's on me. People say, like, why didn't you refute the landslide thing? Because, first of all, whether he gets a landslide or not does not allow him to break the law, to controvert the Constitution, and go against Supreme Court precedent. All right, let's just play a little bit.
He didn't, for the record, under 50% at the end of the day.
And under 50%. You can't have a landslide.
With a plurality.
Cases,
Donald
the
Trump
Empowerment
has
Control Act, none of that. You can say that you don't
Donald
think it's
Trump as the head
right
of the
to
government
feed starving children
has
in
the
Africa.
right
That's your
to determine
prerogative.
how federal money
the feed
is
starving
spent.
children.
Donald Trump, I can't believe you're going with the starving children. You're going with the starving children.
No, it does. I mean, it does other things that you don't like.
All right, let me.
But it
Okay.
also does this.
Chaps, allow the lady in the room to speak, please.
USAID money spent.
Chaps, let Gillian have her say.
On feeding starving children or
Guys,
in Ukraine in 2014.
guys, let Gillian speak for a moment. Gillian.
The feeding starving children thing is such a freaking red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of you.
Here we go.
Ooh, this is a lot to take in right here.
You know who didn't think it was a red herring? Pop up that link I just put on there from CNN. USAID reinstates contracts for Georgia company that helps feed malnourished kids after Elon Musk responds to CNN reporting. Apparently, it was not a red herring. Apparently, she just doesn't give a shit. A friggin' shit.
Don't care at all. Neither of these schools.
Don't care one iota. Now, again, that's their prerogative. It's just that the United States Congress in the past has deemed it in our nation's interest to make sure that if we have the ability to feed those children, we do. Maybe it's a cynical interest. If we feed them, and all these packages, incidentally, say from the American people. Maybe it's a cynical interest because we want to project soft power. We want to have people like us because around the world, whatever it is. Continue. We'll get to that.
Gillian.
The feeding starving children thing is such a freaking red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of this USAID bloat and corruption does not go to that. Second of all, we have children starving here in America. But third of all, and what you don't know and what you have not looked into.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
there are children starving in America. She says she's a layman. Sam just addressed it. They are trying to cut SNAP. They are trying to cut SNAP, which on average in a month, I think feeds over 40 million people in this country, which includes children. So she doesn't even know what she's talking about.
They rolled their eyes at that part too.
All right.
They want to get rid of free lunches in schools.
Both here and in Africa, which I know I care about both. She cares about neither, but is pretending to care about the kids in America.
It's too much to hear Benny pretend about feeding people.
Jillian, if you want to be a fitness influencer, it would be helpful, I guess, for all your future clients that you want to rip off, for them to be able to survive to adulthood, so that they can, buy whatever product that you're hucking on the marketplace.
Third of all, and what you don't know and what you have not looked into, okay, is that read a book. It's called Save 3 Lives, and it's by the Rodale family. And it has to do with the fact that our big ag companies went into the developed world to addict their soil to our GMO crops. It's a money laundering game. They can grow their crops in their soil far more efficiently and did for thousands of years before ConAgra and Cargill and Monsanto and ADM went in. You just don't know that because you haven't done your homework. So you're like, oh, there's children starving in Africa. When really, it is about billions of dollars going to big ag. That's what that's really about. And I've seen it firsthand when I went to South Sudan and stayed at a refugee camp. So don't play your starving children card. I can't.
Well, listen, it's not my card. It's just simply the reality. And the fascinating thing
about
this,
your card, though. Your game is like nobody's empathetic because children are starving.
We are talking
about what it's really about.
USAID is a percentage point, like literally less than 1% of the U.S. budget. But because there is this attitude amongst frankly, it's not just USAID. I don't like them cutting the IRS. I don't like them cutting the EPA. I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I don't like them cutting the National Labor.
Wait, someone tell me what is going on in Benny Johnson's brain?
Right.
Like, he just sits there with this grin, and it's unclear to me, like, what it is that he thinks he's communicating. This is what they teach you in media training. If you smile, and again, like, this is a point I make a lot about why Democrats should be doing stuff like protesting and avoiding the thing tonight and coming out and explaining to people why they should be upset, because it's always about the reaction shot, right? Like, people can tell, or are, I should say, steered towards how they should feel about things based upon the reaction shot. And so, Benny's up there smiling because he wants to, like, project that, like, he's winning the argument in some way, but his facial tics are just so strange. It's almost distracting, but go ahead.
EPA. I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I don't like them cutting the National Labor Relations Board. I don't like them cutting the FDA.
If you like the level of debt your country's in.
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do. But here we know the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cuts, and they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned over $470,000. Today, it would be $3 million. And if these guys are very concerned about the debt and deficit, we have a way of raising that money. We can go back to the greatest economic time of this country. So if that's genuinely their concern, we have that power to do it. I mean, we're not spending, as a function of GDP, we're not spending significantly more per capita than we were in those years. The problem is that we don't have the revenue. There's been huge tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and presided over by two Republican administrations over the past 20 years.
Okay, Benny, on that point, respond.
I love it. I love it. This is my favorite argument I've ever heard on your show. I love it. Go to the American people. Sam, I beg of you, join the DNC, run for DNC chair. I'll do anything, okay? I want your ideas to be the ideas that Democrats...
Now, this is what you say when you have absolutely no response, literally no response. You spend your entire segment of talking in basically saying, I don't think that's politically palatable.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Anything, okay? I want your ideas to be the ideas that Democrats bring to the midterms and to the 2028 election. More IRS agents. Raise taxes to 90% of wages. I love it, Sam.
No,
how do I get you in the chair, man?
90%.
How do I do
every
it?
dollar.
How do I do it? Where can I donate, Sam?
Just send the money to me directly.
It's the greatest
So
argument ever.
he's
You're
doing
right,
what Tim
Sam.
Pool did. Yeah, the talk over because he doesn't actually want you to have a response here.
And also understand, like that, the argument that he's making, you could literally have that argument in any context, in any way. That's how generic he has to be with this. It's fascinating. I mean, this is why I found it really, really boring and tedious, because the arguments that I'm getting from both these people, and Piers doesn't want to jump in because I have a feeling that Piers is a little bit, had felt like he had to farm this out. The arguments from both these people are so vacuous and could literally apply to like an argument we were having about a parking spot on, like, oh, you tell people that you want to get rid of all the parking spots here. I'd love to see that. There's no substance at all to what he's saying. It's completely generic. And I found it rather boring in some ways, but.
How do I do
every
it?
dollar
How do I do it? Where can I donate, Sam?
Just send the money to me
It's the
directly.
greatest argument ever. You're right, Sam.
Taxing
You should totally have
millionaires
the
and
entire
billionaires
Democrat Party
actually
make that
does
argument.
quite well in terms of Poland. And when Americans see what wealth disparity looks like in this country today, when they actually see the wealth disparity,
Yeah, we've seen
it's
wealth
quite
disparity.
popular.
It looks like a federal government that's $37 trillion in debt, spending money on total bullshit.
You don't know what wealth disparity means.
And absolute and total fraud. Hey, Sam, why don't you ask? Why don't you answer?
You
a quick
can
question?
Google it and find out what it means.
Hey, Sam, why don't you answer a quick question for me? Why are the richest counties in all of America the 5 major counties in the DMV right around Washington, D.C.? Can you explain to me, what do those counties do? Are there some mineral deposits there I don't know about? Did they strike oil? Is there some type of rich industry
answer your
that's created
question.
around Washington? Maybe you could answer me that question. Why are those people so filthy rich? You don't seem to like rich people, so maybe explain why.
I can answer that question.
What does DC?
Sorry, pause it. We have to start a timer that we start the second somebody poses a question and then continues to talk.
Maybe you could answer me that question. Why are those people so filthy rich? You don't seem to like rich people, so maybe explain why.
I can answer that question.
What does DC?
You want me to
make?
answer? It's lobbyists. It's lobbyists like all of the ones that have been appointed to Donald Trump's
Pause it. Wait a second. Look at what is going on with this guy's face.
It got a lot tighter all of a sudden.
Like, what is?
It got tighter.
We're at 5 degrees in temperature.
Watch his, it's so strange. He's like trained himself to sort of like have only like a bizarre smirk. Now, listen, I feel like I got smugness down. I feel like I do that pretty well. I can't make head nor tails out of what he's trying to communicate with that face. It looks like I don't know. It looks like he's about to vomit or something. I can't tell. But go ahead.
Why?
I can answer that question.
What does DC?
You want me to
make,
answer it,
Sam?
It's lobbyists. It's lobbyists like all of the ones that have been appointed to Donald Trump's cabinet and to political positions. Rich lobbyists for all sorts of these industries that you supposedly have a problem with. I mean, that's where all the money is being made. It's not being made by federal workers. It's being made by lobbyists.
Pause it. Now, I should also say, I did not include contractors.
Yeah.
Private contractors. Now, you could argue like they are, lobbying to get contracts too, but it's private contractors and maybe a large percentage of those are defense contractors as well. But it's the point remains. It's all of these corporations that they supposedly have a problem with. And Donald Trump, pull up a list of Donald Trump's lobbyists in Donald Trump's cabinet. It's extraordinary.
You mean Arlington, Virginia isn't full of people who perform in trans operas?
It is. I mean, maybe there are lobbyists who are, but it is extraordinary how many lobbyists are in his cabinet.
His literal attorney general was a lobbyist for the government of Qatar and then some major corporations in this country as well.
And he hires, if not lobbyists, then just executives who hire lobbyists. For instance, like the Forestry Service, I just mentioned, they replaced a soil scientist who is the head of the Forestry Service with a logging company executive. They're doing this at every turn. The head of the FDA, I think maybe we'll have Papantonio on to talk about this thing. The head of the FDA was a top lawyer protecting drug companies that were getting sued left and right. I mean, everything that they supposedly have based their entire fake populist movement on is completely being controverted by Donald Trump, and they don't care. Good.
By federal workers, it's being made by lobbyists. And those are sent by corporations. If you will join me as part of my campaign that you're interested in me running the Democratic Party, in calling for Donald Trump to fire all of the lobbyists he's hired so far, it wouldn't leave many people left in the government. But if you'll join me with that, we can start to chip away at that problem you have with the counties around DC.
We've just got some breaking news from this.
Okay. And then they went on to talk about how all this Epstein news is going to be huge, and they're very excited about it. Donald Trump's chief of staff, former lobbyist. Sean Duffy, former lobbyist. Collins, former lobbyist. It's just off the top of my... who else we got?
You said Pam Bondi, right?
Pam Bondi, you said.
Yep. I mean, it doesn't just need to be lobbyists. I mean, you have literal CEOs like Howard Lutnick, who is now the Commerce Secretary, who has his company has all Cantor Fitzgerald has all of these crypto holdings, and what do you know? He's supposed to be overseeing the regulation of cryptocurrency himself.
Their solutions, like just to go back to Jillian Michaels saying about the whole GMOs and stuff like that. Look, I think major ag companies should be regulated severely and maybe even nationalized. But I'd also say that organic-y type of thing that she represents, it'd be catastrophic. There's an article in Foreign Policy Magazine 2022. In Sri Lanka, organic farming went catastrophically wrong. Nationwide experiment is abandoned after producing only misery. Basically, they tried to go pesticide-free, and it caused food shortages. So these people have no real solutions other than they have a perverse incentive in that when people are sicker and aren't covered by public health, they turn to quacks like them.
Yep. Oh, boy.
Well done.
Yeah, I just realized we went way over time.
That's okay, but satisfying. This is what the people want.
Anonymous. Can someone explain to me why a lesbian like Jillian Michaels, is she gay?
I don't.
Yeah, I've just found that out doing research on
Aligns
caffeine
themselves with the right and votes for Trump. When they're done with trans and immigrants, they'll eliminate her right to same-sex marriage and to parent non-biological children. Well, you could ask the same thing of Dave Rubin.
Yeah,
you could ask the same thing of Matt Schlapp.
Yeah.
She's a businesswoman.
I mean...
You can ask the same thing of any marginalized group that votes for the Republicans. The reality is that they put their class interests ahead of those incursion into their rights because they are under the impression that they will be spared. They are just fundamentally selfish people, and also being lesbian or being gay doesn't exclude you from transphobia. There are plenty of TERFs who are lesbians.
Well, Benny Johnson was slamming trans people. Is he not gay?
He's not gay.
He's not?
He's not. Yeah.
Seriously? Oh,
yeah, it's a little confusing.
Just a plagiarist.
But yeah, I mean, like a lot of this TERF movement, trans exclusionary radical feminists, they use feminist language to pervert feminism to exclude trans people from it. Like they are we get to these markers in our history where there's like a baseline in terms of like what is acceptable with like how to treat women or whatever, and they use the rights that have already been accrued and pervert them to burn the bridge behind them and make it so that trans people are marginalized, and they're under the naive impression that they won't come for them next. But we saw I think it's North Dakota, there might be another state that is escaping me, they're already introducing resolutions trying to overturn Obergefell and gay marriage.
Yep.
But for her, she's rich, so it's fine.
Who cares?
She's trying to make money.
Saks Repair. Do you guys have any information on the court case involving income-based repayments for student loans? No. In fact, I was just digging through the cases are so... There's two different cases. The Eighth Circuit, I think, is one of them, and they're so Byzantine. It's we got to get somebody on to talk about it. I literally was reading the article, and I just said, like, we got to get somebody on because I can't make head nor tails about this. I do know though that if you are on income-based repayments, your payments have probably shot up. Clever leftist, Sam, as renowned metrosexual, can you reveal your haircut style, routine, techniques for an aspiring zaddy? You know, this haircut I got is different from my normal haircut because I missed it and I had to go do that Jubilee thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to my girlfriend's haircut place.
Yeah.
And
You're not thrilled with it?
Wasn't thrilled.
Well, unfortunately, though, it's tough to maintain your level of hair coverage at your age. So I don't know if people can use this as a replication. right? That's not many men your age have that much have the hair.
Oh, I thought that was a knock.
No, it was a compliment.
I will say this,
Sort of.
that I've been trying to push Sunset Lakes that day to do like a hair product.
Yeah.
Because I used to use this stuff from like the Body Shop, and they stopped. I don't even know if they're out of business or what. They don't do it anymore. So I make my own with coconut and beeswax.
Oh, cool.
That's it. Just those two things. There it is. I'll see you on my self-care YouTube channel, whatever it is. Hey, Sam, Emma, happy Tuesday. Thanks for responding to my email. Had a phone call with the king at SSA last night. Lots of information. Hook me up. I will do that. I thought that you had been in contact. All right. Rosaf. Hey, Sam, are you guys covering the State of the Union later today? No, you should be on Piers more often. Your message gets across, and you made the other two people on the panel look like kids.
Well, they keep inviting us on like
Maybe.
a lot, but it's also just like, what's the value? I don't know.
Maybe. Militant apathy. You really think RFK and his spawn haven't been vaxxed? Bullshit. Well, he said if they were young kids again, he wouldn't do it this time. Black-pilled Wiki, if you're going to take a swig on camera during Piers Morgan panel, at least make sure it's a Majority Report branded mug that you can flash to the audience. Rookie mistake. I know. I didn't have one at home. I know that. Viper. Sam, we need to start calling the DNC for what it is, a corporation. Okay. Joe Snuffy. It's too much. They're aiming to cut personnel expenses by 8% on the military budget. I would imagine it's really yes. It's all just like cutting services for military personnel as opposed to like the sales of weapons or whatnot. Dark Soul, Trump's only card seems to be the whole rant, naming every person Putin has lied to and broke agreements with, and then saying, but he wouldn't with me. Incredible play, sir. All right, 5 more of these. Catfish James. I work in metal product distribution. I've been having to explain tariffs all over again. But something that people do not understand is that we pay the mill's price on delivery. So even if we ordered items 2 months ago, we pay today's prices when the goods are delivered, increasing our cost immediately and now exponentially. Prices jumped 50 cents per pound on Monday and are expected to jump by that much again today. Jeez. Hogtown. My wife and I got invited to a department meeting at my son's school, public, to talk about his learning ADHD and individual learning supports. As they went through his issues, I realized they could have been speaking about me when I was my son's age, except nobody gave a crap about ADHD when I was a kid or bothered to diagnose it. If you were still testing reasonably well, it's the same with autism. It was always there. It's just getting diagnosed more today, without a doubt.
100%. I mean, and that's why RFK, when he talks about when he talks about public health, his first concern is how expensive it's going to be to treat everybody who needs treatment because of things like that.
And I will say, like, is it conceivable to me that we have environmental factors that may be increasing things? Certain, and I'm not saying specifically ADHD or autism, but certainly some diseases and maybe not others, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, we know lead was a neurotoxin. We know it was problematic. But the underdiagnoses with 100%, and I would argue within like 5 or 10 years, we're going to have, the spectrum is going to get more defined and more people will be diagnosed to the spectrum with slightly different, like sort of planes of neural atypical issues, if you want to say, in instances, maybe strengths and advantages in other ways. Without a doubt.
Greta Thunberg talks about this and the fact that with her diagnosis, it gave her very specialized interest and a focus like that. It can also be, like, for her superpower, as she describes it. And it is that for a lot of people.
Alex, my farmer uncle primed everyone that our family farm income will be going down. I don't understand how he can understand so much, yet still think that government bureaucracy is the actual problem.
Because he's not organized. I mean, when farmers are organized, they understand these things. When they're individual capitalists left in their own, it's all, who knows?
National Razor. I've been calling my congressman, Schumer and Jeffries, almost every day. Schumer's people started asking for zip codes, which is a good thing. It's a good sign. I tell them not to vote for the CR and then read Article 1 live on television, explain what is happening to the American people, and I tell them the people will be the people will understand. The only thing I would add to your Congress people, if you are, Hakeem Jeffries, maybe not, do not join the Crypto Caucus. Have there be one Democrat in it, Richie Torres. All right, 3 more of these. Jonathan Armstead. Here in Chicago, I used to work a job by City Hall. Ron would start his day at the same coffee shop I frequented. This is gossip, but dude was abrupt to staff, a bad eater, and super short. I have no problem being this petty. Nice. Worcester Don Draper. Did you see the story about the gold Cybertruck owner in Worcester who wants to trade it in because he gets cut off and yelled at daily? No, I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
He's a plastic surgeon.
Proud to be from Worcester. Is that true?
Yeah, I saw a story.
That's freaking awesome. That's awesome. Good for him. Trade it in, dude. Melt it. Put it in your teeth.
Ghost right into the Atlantic.
I work in the automotive industry in Canada, says Dan from Windsor, and everyone here is worried. You guys have to hit the streets. If you see a Tesla, give the driver a thumbs down. And the final IM of the day, we didn't even get the phone calls today. My clock management is just horrible. Rail Machine. When you say let Richie Torres be the only Dem in the Crypto Caucus, you're either confused or lying about what the Democratic Party is and what its incentive structure has been for at least 30 years. Well, I don't think you get the point of what I'm saying, Ding Dong.
Yeah,
if I thought that he would be the only person in there without people calling, then I wouldn't tell people to call.
Democrats are also, that same incentive structure made them pro-charter, and then that's more toxic than it was previously.
I like writing in anonymously on the IMs to tell Sam he's confused about the Democratic Party, about doing this professionally for over 20 years.
But it's just so stupid. Like, if I thought the Democratic Party on its own would make Richie Torres the only person in that caucus, then I wouldn't call for people to call and mention it.
And if it's so clear, why is he the first one?
And why don't you explain what you mean by that instead of just making some snide remark about how he's confused or lying? What is the incentive structure, and can you elaborate?
I could probably sit down right now and come up with a list of at least 10 people I think who are going to join that caucus. But the point is to make it toxic. Can you make it toxic enough so that only 9 of those 10 join it?
Well, that person's not going to be making any calls, so what are we?
Yeah, too much of a coward to call in.
All right, Budaplex.
Or do something.
Sorry.
Final IM, because that one was so annoying. Budaplex. Worcester forever.
Nice.
I love it. There's some good stories coming out of Worcester. Worcester became a sanctuary city recently. And now people are having a tough time with their gold Tesla. That is pretty sweet. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today, folks. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess I'm